All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody, hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. I did a full show last night, so make sure you hit that subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to TheIndianJesus.com for your very own official Indian Jesus merch. We also do have a Discord server that is absolutely free to join, guys. It is a great place to meet like-minded people, having interesting conversations 24/7. We are hanging out, and like I said, it is absolutely free to join. However, if you join as a member of this channel, you can scroll right. Well, I want to do that. You can scroll right below the video here and hit that join button. And not only do you get members-only live streams and early videos here on YouTube, but it also gives you full access to the Discord server, which includes a bunch of other channels, including the voice channel where we have our after party after every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday stream. We go in there, and instead of having to worry about the YouTube censors and you are not stuck behind your keyboard, you're actually on screen with me and everybody else. It is a good time. Come and join us. We got Zippy, the SM Lee in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. I'm going to guess this is in reference to our running poll. The poll, guys. Replay gang, let me know in the comments below. Can God create a boulder too heavy for him to lift? Yes or no? So Zippy said, should have offered yes, but no, but. I think more deeply, I say no, God can make a rock heavier than God, but he can make you think, think it to inspire you. Inspiration and madness to lead to evolution. Sounds like some mental gymnastics to jump around. It's yes or no. Can he do it or can he not do it? And so in theme with our Philosophy Fridays, we are going to be diving back into the crash course of philosophy. And so we got into some of the philosophy of religion last time. And then the first one was just, some basic stuff about argumentation and how people think about this stuff. So if you haven't seen any of those, that's totally fine. There's nothing to necessarily miss. You could pick up right where we are, but I definitely suggest going back to watch the other two. Today will be the final day where we are talking about philosophy of religion before we move on to other stuff. So hopefully it should be a good time. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
We spent quite a bit of time looking at arguments for God's existence, but we haven't said much yet about this God. Like, what's he like? Is he a he? Is he like strictly Marvel superheroes, or is he more of a DC guy? Does he prefer his salsa with or without cilantro? I like corn. Who's his favorite crystal gem from Steven Universe?
Okay, real quick. If there's a God, and that God does not like cilantro, is it really a God?
I guess those kinds of questions would only apply to a heavily personalized and anthropomorphic God. But the traditional picture of God, the one accepted and even assumed throughout Judeo-Christian tradition up into modern times, is what we might call an omni-God, possessing particular divine attributes, the characteristics believed to be held by God. Now,
like the omni-liberal. But the omni, that prefix, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all of those things, that is what we are going to be asking. What is God like? What is this God that you appeal to, that you worship? What is it like? What is it like? And guys, if you can do me a favor and hit that like button, that would do so much. Thank you.
Let's pause for a moment to acknowledge that this discussion is of one particular God, the one who stars in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scriptures. Of course, lots of people believe in lots of other gods, and they all have attributes of their own. We're focusing on this God because he's the one all of the philosophers we've been studying were talking about. He's the one they believed or didn't believe in. Philosophers like Augustine and Thomas Aquinas,
again, who we talked about in the last Philosophy Friday. Again, check that out if you have not already seen it. I should put the links in the description. That would be smart. But it is under the playlist thing, so you should be able to just click the Philosophy Friday breakdown and get all the old episodes.
who were themselves influenced by the writings of Plato and Aristotle, came up with a general set of divine attributes that are still widely held among today's theists. And in this view, God is omniscient, which means that he knows everything that can be known, and he's also omnipotent, or all-powerful. He's been said to be omnibenevolent, or possessing perfect goodness, and he's omnitemporal and omnipresent, meaning he exists at all places and all times.
Wow. That's a lot of omnis. That's a lot of omnis. So we say, I don't know, hard yes or no, soft yes or no, work for most things. It's a hard no for the rock heavier than God, but a soft yes if you want to use your imagination. Well, we're not talking about imagination. We're talking about the real world. And so this obviously assumes that a God does exist, and that it would be all-knowing, all-powerful, possessing perfect goodness, existing in all places and at all times. And so the question bound, like, is this something that God is not able to do, or how does that work if you're all-knowing and all-powerful? You said God is not human, and the infinite, the best understanding of God I can even grasp is nature. Humans love to humanize things. I agree, but again, we are specifically talking about the Abrahamic God with these arguments, and at least today, we're specifically talking about the Abrahamic God. So Yahweh or Allah or Yeshua, not Yeshua. What do they call him? And you know what I mean? But the Abrahamic God. So in general, yes, you might be able to say this, but this would then be saying, okay, that God does not exist. And you don't necessarily have to pick one or the other, but in this context, you do. So if you believe that there is a God of some sort that exists, either he can create a boulder that is too heavy for him to lift, or he cannot create a boulder that is too heavy for him to lift.
At once. Now, it's worth noting that none of these attributes is actually mentioned in the Bible, but philosophers like Aquinas reasoned that they must be the case if God is perfect, and these philosophers took it as given that he is.
Oh, it must be. Source, trust me, bro.
The problem is, a close investigation of these attributes reveals some rather tricky little puzzles. No, I take that back. They are really, really big puzzles.
Indeed. Shout out to Huge Anus. Welcome to the party. Love the name. Said an omnipotent God or an omnipotent being should be able to create a boulder so heavy that they cannot lift it, while also being able to lift it at the same time. An omnipotent being able to do anything could also bend logic to be able to do both at the same time. Okay, I think that's definitely an interesting approach to it. But again, if we're talking about the physical reality, that boulder is either something that a God can lift, or it's something that God cannot lift. So if you're saying that you could bend logic in the sense that even if you are bending logic, then is the boulder not then the boulder is not too heavy for him to lift? That you don't need any bending of logic to say no, yeah, or yes, he can lift it, therefore it is not too heavy. So it's pretty. I mean, I know it goes crazy, but it has to be a yes or a no. But welcome to the party. We also got Bon Zig. Welcome. Good to see ya. Big Brain Talks. Yep, Philosophy Fridays. So we said the Abrahamic God is Odin pretending to be Zeus, pretending to be a different old man. I will die on this hill. Well, dilly to that. I am right there with you. Zippy likes that. Nature can be contradiction. I don't know if I like that. We'll put that to the side, but I don't know if I like it. We'll see. DFTBA. Somebody let me know. What does it mean? DFTBA. What
can God create a rock so heavy he can't lift it? Is just one of an infinite number of unanswerable questions that can be asked about God. Like, if God is omnipotent, he has to be able to create something so heavy he can't lift it. Yeah,
so he has to be able to do it. To say, oh, he can't do that, then he's not omnipotent.
Otherwise, his inability to create it would mean that there's at least one thing he couldn't do. But then he wouldn't be omnipotent, because if he were truly all-powerful, he'd be able to lift anything. Quandaries like this come up all the time.
All the time. Hughes said, but being able to do anything, an omnipotent being could simply make the answer to if they can lift the boulder both yes and no at the same time. I would need some type of demonstration as to what that would look like. What's an example of the logic being bent for something to either exist and not exist, or if you can show me that paradox, then I can accept that. But that's just saying, well, if we could do it, then it would be. Well, obviously, that's the question I'm asking. Can he do it or not? You're just saying, well, if he could do it, he could do it. Which, sure. So he said, is a stone, no man, is a stone, if a stone or man or machine can, is that what you're trying to say? If he can move, really immovable, when the stone itself is on a rock flying through the universe. That's completely irrelevant. That's completely irrelevant. Can he make this rock? Can he lift it? You're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. It's a very simple thing. I mean, the answer isn't simple, but the concept is not super big brain, as Bonzig was saying. We got King Nirvana in the building. Welcome. So, do all gods have to be able to do everything to be considered a god? Maybe. At least the Bible God. Definitely the Bible God, which again is the one that we are focusing on tonight, just because, as they said, that's the God that the philosophers that we're talking about believed in. But no problem. We just started and just asked the question: can God create a boulder too heavy for him to lift? Hugh said, "Good question. I have no idea what it would look like. It's impossible." But nothing could be impossible to an omnipotent being. And so that begs the question, then how do you know that? How do you know that there is this omnipotent being, and how do you know that it is omnipotent?
Because if he were truly all-powerful, he'd be able to lift anything. Quandaries like this come up all the time when you consider the divine attributes. And some of the questions that arise are not only about God, but also about us. For instance, if God knows everything, then he also knows the future, right? Which makes sense if he's also omnitemporal, because that would mean that he's already in the future and also in the past. And don't forget the present. But many theists also believe that God gave us free will. So how can we be free if God already knows what we're gonna do?
We can't, bro. We can't.
In that case, are we really free, or is freedom just an illusion that he created for us to make us feel like we're in control? What we're seeing here is that, at least on the surface, God's traditional divine attributes are internally inconsistent, meaning they can't all be true at the same time. And what do you do if you hold inconsistent beliefs? Well,
you gotta get rid of at least one of them.
Well, if you're being philosophically rational, you either give some of them up, or you figure out a way to understand them that makes them consistent. This is what a theist who believes in the omni-God has to do. Let's think about the contradiction that arises from believing the following propositions. 1, God is omniscient. 2, humans have free will. Is there any way to resolve this contradiction, or do we have to surrender one of those beliefs?
Okay, so then, Zippy, the answer then is yes. If it can lift anything, then the answer is yes. Or rather, no. So no, cannot. Sorry, I mixed it up in my head. The answer would be no. That if he can lift anything, then it is impossible for a boulder to be too heavy for God to lift. That is your position. Bonsig said, "Free will ain't free or real." Shout out to TV Viewerski. Welcome to the party. So I should have been more specific, especially since I didn't capitalize. So we are talking about the God of the Abrahamic religions. It's too late now to change it, but yes, the God of the Bible and the Torah and the Quran. Can that God create a boulder that is too heavy for that same God to lift? Welcome. You said, I don't know of the existence of any omnipotent beings, so who knows what an actual being would like if its existence is even possible. Bingo. There you go. That's the right line of thinking. Shout out to Nick Luchetti in the building. Welcome to the party. Oh, you are going to have fun tonight, my friend. So we just started. We're just getting into the idea that ideas about God. What is God like? Is a very hard question to answer. And actually, let me just back this up.
Them consistently felt future about him, and he wouldn't be.
So the omni God, all knowing, all powerful, possessing perfect goodness, existing in all places and existing at all times. And the question on the table of something, some God, some being like this, can that God create a boulder too heavy for him to lift? Welcome. All right, let's back to where we were.
Us. For instance, if God knows everything, then he also knows the future, right? Which makes sense if he's also omnitemporal, because that would mean that he's already in the future and also in the past. And don't forget the present. But many theists also believe that God gave us free will. So how can we be free if God already knows what we're going to do? In that case, are we really free, or is freedom just an illusion that he created for us to make us feel like we're in control? What we're seeing here is that, at least on the surface, God's traditional divine attributes are internally inconsistent, meaning they can't all be true at the same time. And what do you do if you hold inconsistent beliefs? Well, if you're being philosophically rational, you either give some of them up or you figure out a way to understand them that makes them consistent. This is what a theist who believes in the omni-God has to do. Let's think about...
You got some work to do. Just because a priest told you, oh, God knows everything and God is this and that and that and that and that, you still have to do the philosophical work to be in good faith, to actually have an understanding of that, as opposed to just a blind faith. Hugh said, do we even know if the Abrahamic God is omnipotent? Nope. Is there a passage that says he can do literally anything? I'm not sure if all powerful literally means can do anything. And no, we don't know that. As he said before, it is not mentioned at all in the Bible, any of the omnis. This is that's something that developed with the culture over time. And did they do another one recently? No, I haven't seen that. And I'm not, I'm not in any rush to see anything done by Destiny. But hey, if Andrew Wilson's going to take him down, then I am all for it. All right, so let's dive back in here.
Understand them that makes them consistent. This is what a theist who believes in the omni-God has to do. Let's think about the contradiction that arises from believing the following propositions. 1, God is omniscient. 2, humans have free will. Is there any way to resolve this contradiction, or do we have to surrender one of those beliefs? One possible response is to say that knowledge and causation aren't the same thing. So God might know that we're going to do something without actually causing us to do it.
Okay, so knowledge and causation not being the same thing. So it is possible to be omnitemporal, where you are from the future and you know the future, but you're not causing. Or let's just say you know the future. You know what's going to happen in the future, but that doesn't mean that you cause that. So that in and of itself is totally fair.
This actually makes sense if you think about it. Imagine a person standing on a cliff looking down at a train track that curves around a bend. From her vantage point, the onlooker can see that just on the other side of the bend, a person is stuck on the track as the train approaches. Too far away to do anything. The onlooker knows the accident will happen before it does, but the fact that she knows it will happen doesn't mean that she caused it to happen. To use a...
Right. So, she knew that the train was going to kill him. She saw that he was stuck for all intents and purposes. She knew, but she didn't cause that. The issue I personally have with that is she didn't create the circumstance. She just happened upon it. Whereas the argument is that God did create the circumstances. So Hugh said, I think the fact that God fights a war against demons in the first place puts the claim that he is omnipotent in question. Why would he fight if he could just snap his fingers and eradicate all sin? Thanos snapped that shit out of existence. I was like, are we far enough in that I can curse yet? Yeah. Fantastic point. And so when we ask these questions, the purpose isn't to say, if you don't have an answer, then you must be wrong. If you can't answer this, then God must not exist. That is not the attempt here. It's just, these are questions that rise when you put forth the claim that there is an omnipotent God. So T said, is it yes if it never wants to lift it? It doesn't matter what he wants. It's the ability. Can he lift it? Whether or not he wants to lift it, if he did want to lift it, could he?
will happen before it does, but the fact that she knows it will happen doesn't mean that she caused it to happen. To use a less gruesome example, if God knew you were going to eat an entire pecan pie by yourself over the course of a lonely weekend, that doesn't mean that he caused you to do it. That was
You sure? You sure? You sure? Why was I eating a pie? Maybe that was maybe that's my favorite food, and and something happened to me that I had no control over. So now, as a result of outside forces, I need my comfort food, and I eat the whole pecan pie.
entire pecan pie by yourself over the course of a lonely weekend, that doesn't mean that he caused you to do it. That was all on you. But wait, if God is omniscient, then he can't be wrong, can he? Because if he was ever wrong, then there would have been something he didn't know. So if God knew you were going to eat the whole pie, then you couldn't not eat the pie, because if you decided not to at the last minute, then you would have just proven God wrong, thereby single-handedly stripping him of his divine omniscience. Good job. So the knowledge and power of God are, to say the least, philosophically perplexing. Now let's consider another question about God's personal skill set. Can God sin? If he
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Can God sin? So let's end this one here with 67% of you saying that no, God is not all powerful, because God cannot create a boulder that is too heavy for him to lift. So that is something that he is not able to do. So the next one is, can God so again, can the Abrahamic God sin? Can God sin?
he's omnipotent, it would seem that he can, because he can do anything, but if he's omnibenevolent or inherently good, then it would seem that he can't. This doctrine, which says that God can't sin, is known as divine impeccability. But if God
I hate the divine impeccability thing. That, you know, as
is impeccable and incapable of sin, then doesn't that mean that he is not omnipotent?
or the other side of this is that God can't sin because of the omnibenevolence. That if God does it, it is therefore not a sin, and so God could, you know, or pay a child, and it would be totally a-okay because of divine command theory and this divine impeccability.
But if God is impeccable and incapable of sin, then doesn't that mean that he is not omnipotent? After all, I can sin easily. I mean, give
I said, shit, me too.
me 5 minutes, I could probably break like 2 or 3 commandments, like the ones about coveting stuff, not the murdery ones. Still, it seems kind of weird to think that I can do something that God can't. Some people try to solve this particular puzzle by saying that sin is necessarily a failure, so therefore a perfect being can't do it.
And again, that goes back to the idea that it's not a failure if God were to, you know, do any list of unspeakable acts. God can just do it because it automatically makes it right, because it's God.
Others say that even though God might do something that would be a sin if a human did it, the idea of sin simply doesn't apply to God.
Yikes. Talk about special pleading.
Perhaps because, given his omnibenevolence, everything that God does is inherently good. Now, many philosophers find this solution troubling because it kind of makes God's goodness vacuous. After all, it basically means that saying God did a thing would be the same thing as saying God did a good thing, because ipso facto, anything God does is good. And if
Right. Zippy said sin is a clerical error or category. So if you make the rules, you cannot break the rules. That's not true at all. I can make a rule that I would be the god of this this stream, and I can say nobody is allowed to say yellow, and if you say yellow, you get banned. But I can say yellow all the time. You can absolutely break rules that you make. The more you make, the more human you make God, the more insane things get. Well, I mean that's definitely true. That's definitely true. He said, Zibby, that's an interesting idea. If God made everything, then he made evil as well. And that is the next video. We are specifically going to be going into the problem of evil. This would require that he isn't benevolent. Banned. Mods, ban him forever. Just kidding. We all love a huge anus, am I right? Zippy said, man is finite. He does not get to update the rules. Okay, fair, but Okay, sure.
Would be the same thing as saying God did a good thing, because ipso facto anything God does is good. And if that's the case, then his goodness doesn't have any real meaning. Yet another possible contradiction presents itself in the belief that the omni-God is also a personal God. Many people find it difficult to suppose that God could be omnitemporal and omniscient, yet still have a personal relationship with his creatures. It's hard to understand how God could relate to us or feel the way we feel if he doesn't experience time as we do.
So, Zippy, this is going to directly come up in the next video.
If he already knows what's going to happen, how could he ever be surprised or change his mind? And if God is omnitemporal, is it even possible that he could be moved to respond to prayers? Let's look at this idea up close in this week's Flash Philosophy. To the thought, when people talk about praying for something to happen or to not happen, or are otherwise making a request of God.
So, petitionary prayer, praying for something to happen or not happen, that and making a request of God.
They're making what are known as petitionary prayers. When you pray in this way, you're asking God for something, to help you pass a test, or to save a loved one who's in danger, or to make sure the Patriots win the game. Contemporary American philosopher Eleanor Stump argues that we have no reason to think that asking God for something would actually make a difference.
And that is one of the first things when I actually started to be critical of my own faith. Again, if you're new here, then I am now a very strong atheist. But I was born into the Catholic Church, confirmed into the Methodist Church, and I was very into religion and Christianity all through my first semester of college. And then I didn't have some big run from Jesus moment, so to speak. It was just a lot of thinking and learning about philosophy, learning about psychology and how the mind works and all that stuff. And this is one of the first things that occurred to me. Not like just occurred to me, but one of the first questions that I was presented with was like, why would we make a prayer like that? Why would I ask God to do something other than what God is already going to do? Do I know God better than himself, or do I know the world? Do I know the future? That don't make sense. If I have faith in God, then it should be that I have the faith to just let him do whatever he's going to do. Nick says, I say he did better of his actions against Job, just to prove the devil wrong. Even though he supposedly knows all, therefore knew Job wouldn't renounce his faith. Yeah, so really quick, if you guys are not familiar with the book of Job, an entire book of the Bible, the book of Job, it's about this guy named Job, who is a very, very, very pious man. And the devil goes to God, like, hey, yo, I bet you I can get Job to renounce you. I bet you. And God's like, what? Nuh-uh. I was like, all right, well, kill his whole family. Like, fine. Kills his whole family. Job still, I still love you, God. And I was like, all right, well, what if you kill all his livestock? And, just going over and over and over and destroying his entire life. And the point of the story is, even through all of that, Job still loves and worships God. Why? Especially as Nick brings up, he knew that no matter what he did to Job, Job would not renounce his faith. And he did it anyway. Why? Benevolence. My ass. Zippy said, look at the government. It has rules, but they're so complex, government can break the rules without breaking the rules. Government says government did no wrong, comrade, but they did. People can lie, right? You can do a bad thing and break a rule and then lie. That doesn't erase the fact that you broke the rule. Right? Like Hugh can totally say, no, I never said yellow. That doesn't have any bearing on whether or not he actually said yellow. It's called a lie. And government does it a lot. Boom, boom, boom. Where are we? You got that one. Yep, dumb things always change the word. King Nirvana said, but Job got a whole new family out of God after, didn't he? Though he may miss the last one. Yeah. He had a family. He had a life. He had the religiosity to do everything right. And that wasn't good enough. So we say, I feel like it helps to look at the Abrahamic God and system like the Greek pantheon boiled into one being. Fair. That does make sense. If everything is homogeneous, does anything really exist? Oof, getting in there. We said a rule is only broken when the rule breaking is punished. That is just false. That is just not what that means. You're joking, right? Obviously, you can break a rule and not get caught. Come on.
Eleanor Stump argues that we have no reason to think that asking God for something would actually make a difference. She thinks about it like this. If God knows everything, including the future, which he does if he's omniscient, and if God has the power to bring about any state of affairs, which he does if he's omnipotent, and if he always wants to bring about the best state of affairs, which he does if he's omnibenevolent, then God has already decided what's going to happen in every single case, to everyone, always. So either your prayer is asking God to do something he was already going to do, in which case your prayer was kind of a waste of time, or your prayer is asking God to do something he's already decided not to do because it wasn't actually the best thing. Sorry, Patriots. And
so yeah, Nick saying, well, why did his family have to die? And obviously, King Nirvana was joking, but there's an entire religion based on not just this story, but among others. And it's sad because you may not be serious, but there is a whole lot of people who will say this without the last part and just be like, oh yeah, well you got it. And then, of course heaven, right? Life was just a waiting room. That's the sad part.
God to do something he's already decided not to do because it wasn't actually the best thing. Sorry, Patriots. And in that case, even if God would change his mind based on your prayer, you wouldn't want him to because it would actually make things worse than they would have been if you'd just let God do his thing.
Right. So why would you pray to God and ask him for anything? He's aware. He's, according to your beliefs, he's doing all of this. So to ask him to do something is almost to say that, like, that's like asking me, hey, Lutch, would you mind doing a stream on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern? It's like, yeah, bro, I was already gonna do that.
Or you wouldn't want him to because it would actually make things worse than they would have been if you just let God do his thing. In other words, if God knows what's best, why would you want to change his mind? Now,
if God knows best, why would you want to change his mind with a petitionary prayer? That don't make no sense.
Stump suggests that there might be some value in the asking, even if the prayer doesn't actually change what's going to happen. Maybe you agree with her. But at this point, it should be clear just how many problems there are in the divine attributes when you think about them. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Thomas Aquinas, the thinker who's largely responsible for the traditional divine attributes we think of today, responded to these sorts of puzzles by saying that all the speculation of what God is like is just analogical predication.
Analogical predication. Let's dive into that. But first, let's say hello to our boy Mike W. in the building. Welcome. Very glad to have some more atheists in the chat this go around. Where were you guys last Friday? I needed you. Mike said, if God is sovereign, you can't change his mind with prayer. Bingo. Yes, indeed. And so we are 50-50 on the poll. Can the Abrahamic God sin? Yes or no? If you have not already, hit that poll and you'll win. So analogical predication. What in the hell is that?
Basically, Aquinas said that we can't predicate or assert anything about God because he's so far beyond our understanding.
That works for me. We can't predicate or assert anything about God because he's so far beyond our understanding. If that is the case, I am willing to accept that. But then you don't get to make any claims about anything about what God wants or what or any of that. Because it's outside of your understanding.
When we speak of God, Aquinas said, we never really say anything that's true. Instead, we have to speak entirely in analogies because that's all we can do.
And again, if that is the case, then culturally, the values and stuff, great. But the dogmatic adherence to this is historical and scientific truth, That don't make no sense.
So God isn't literally our father, for example, but we can understand his role for us as being father-like, because that's as close as we can get to really understanding what he is. Or think of it this way. People in South Florida might say it's cold when the temperature dips into the 50s, but in Alaska, it's not cold until it's well below zero. But both of
I'm up in Jersey, and I get cold if it dips below 70.
those frames of reference are more similar to each other than they are to the cold that is absolute zero, which is about negative 273 degrees Celsius. You might even say that absolute zero cold and negative 10-degree cold are not even the same thing. But we use that one word, cold, to describe them both as a kind of analogical way of talking about something that defies our complete and personal understanding.
So the way that cold has such a wide use that when we are comparing the cold Floridian to the cold Alaskan and to absolute zero, those are such different types of cold that the word needs more to it. There's not enough there. Just like the word God. Just like it. TV said, I figure Jesus was a GM sent down because a raid got map served.
What?
I have no idea what that means. Sorry. You said, I agree with Zippy. Using logic, if everything is the same thing, then nothing exists. However, an omnipotent being being able to do anything could make existence possible regardless. Interesting.
So Aquinas basically said not to worry about all of these puzzles because none of these things we say about God is more than an approximation, a little analog that our tiny little minds can come up with.
So stop shoving it down other people's throats.
So that we can talk about an infinite being. Now, there are other thinkers, particularly in modern times, who point out that none of the traditional divine attributes are in the Bible anyway, so maybe God isn't an omni-God. Maybe he's more like a superhero. He can be way smarter than us, way more powerful than us, way more good than us, but still not perfect. This seems like a sacrilege to a lot of people, but some philosophers argue that it's more compatible with the God of the Bible. After all, in the Bible, we see God doing very human things, like walking in the garden, getting angry, being surprised, and changing his mind. So it could be possible that God actually does hate cilantro or is a big fan of amethyst. That's the kind of stuff that we, as philosophers, get to ponder kindly and thoughtfully in the comments. Today, we learned about the traditional divine attributes, omnipotence, omniscience, omnitemporality, and omnibenevolence, and the puzzles that they create for our understanding of God. We also explored some possible solutions to those puzzles, from Aquinas' ideas of analogical predication to the work of Eleanor Stump. This episode is brought to you.
Shout out to Eleanor Stump. So, King Nirvana is asking, have you had a lot of close family or friends judge or argue with you a lot over them being Christian and you not? Hell yes! Hell yeah. So, when I first, got the merch design, I sent one to my dad because my dad's my biggest supporter and has been since the beginning. So I sent him the shirt, and he's understood, like, he's Christian, he's a believer, but he understands what I'm doing. But he was dumb enough to put it on in the house when my mom was around, and she's like, "What are you wearing?" And she had, of course, this is a year into me being the Indian Jesus. She had no idea. And so she was very offended. And then my mom's parents are also extremely religious. And again, in the beginning, really did not like the blasphemy. And arguments, maybe not so much, as opposed to people just voicing their concerns that I shouldn't be using this. But surprisingly, my grandparents have actually come around and ordered a shirt. So I mean, changing minds. But yeah, you were spot on, sir. Spot on. All right. So now we are diving into the problem.
Which came first, orange the color or orange the fruit? And why is C-3PO afraid of everything? Like, who decided it was a good idea to teach a droid to experience fear? There are some questions that we ask ourselves, either as kids or adults or both. They're questions about weird.
Too young. But divine command. God did it, so it's totally fine. I forgot. I didn't even put that together when I was making that up.
Maybe it's fear. There are some questions that we ask ourselves, either as kids or adults, or both. They're questions about weird everyday things, and they're weird because most of us don't know the answers to them offhand. But most of the time, those questions turn out to be pretty answerable. Like for the ones I just mentioned, the short answers are because of the way photons interact with molecules in the atmosphere, the fruit, and because that's what George Lucas wanted. Maybe because 3PO is a protocol droid and they need to be able to relate to humans, though he could stand to turn his fear settings down a notch. Now, as you know, philosophers have a soft spot for questions that can never be answered. Most of the time, these puzzles make for great thought experiments, tests of our skills in logic and argument.
Shout out to the thought bubble. And guys, one more. I need one more person to hit that poll. I need one more person to hit that poll. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh man. King Nirvana. I think that might be a comment of the night. An early comment of the night. Dilly dilly to you, sir. Love it. Love it. Love it. Zippy said, at the very least, she was about the age of women having kids. Not like certain Islamic guys. Yep. What was her name? Aisha? 9 years old. 9 years old. So we can assume that Mary was at least 12 or 13. Which is so much better, right? I don't think so. Let's see. Is there any mention of Mary's age in the Bible? That I should have chat GBT'd it. There's no Bible verse that specifies the ages of either Mary or Joseph. The general consensus of the ages based on Jewish tradition, Mary would have been a young teenager. We know what that means. Hey, shout out to our boy, the Funk Master General. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Coming in hot with the $10 super chat. No question, no comment, just pure love of the game. And of course, every donation comes with a treat for my co-host here, Morty. Thank you, thank you, thank you, sir. Very, very, very much appreciated and glad to see you. So we are diving into the problem of evil. Evil!
Most of the time, these puzzles make for great thought experiments, tests of our skills in logic and argument. But there are some questions whose very lack of an answer can be downright troubling. Unlike the occasional fluke of physics or bit of Star Wars trivia, there's a part of us that really wants or even needs to have an answer to these things. For the past month or so, we've been exploring the philosophy of religion, and we've been doing it mainly from a theistic perspective, looking into arguments that justify belief in God. But one of the most persistent challenges to God's existence is also the root of one of the most asked but least answerable questions that we as thinking beings face. Why is there evil?
Big question, guys. DFTBA, it's right there. Figure out what it means, and you get a $5 Cash App. And then you should pick your favorite one of these quotes that come up and use it in a way that I won't understand it. And you'd be like, it's a good joke.
Evil comes in many forms, and likewise for philosophers, poses many problems, especially vis-a-vis the existence of God. First, there's what's known as the logical problem of evil. Like all rational people, theists can't help but acknowledge that the world is full of evil. And here we're understanding evil to be all manner of bad stuff, like not just Hitler or Darth Vader or Moriarty. It's everything in the vast spectrum of badness, from stubbed toes to plagues and everything in between.
I mean, stubbed toes, like, if you ever stubbed your pinky toe on the corner of the bed, oof, that is some evil shit.
Theists and atheists both agree that evil exists in this way, but they disagree about the next part. Many theists believe in an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent God. But atheists argue that this creates a contradiction, a set of beliefs that can't all be true at the same time.
Agreed. Agreed.
Because evil is bad, right? Whether it's stubbed toes or genocide or paper cuts or epidemics. So if there's really an all-knowing God out there, he knows about all the evil. He might even know about it before it happens. And if he's all-powerful, he could stop it. And if he's all good, then he would want to stop it. And yet he doesn't. The evil continues.
Why? Just like I apologize. Whoever said it earlier, I think it was Hugh who said it earlier. You could just snap that shit out of existence, and you don't. You know what I would do if I could? Snap evil out of existence. Does that make me more moral than your God? I don't know. Shout out to the Funk Master General. Mike said, how could you verify then or now if Mary was a virgin? So what good is the prophecy if he can't verify it? Exactly. There's no way. She just got ran through, and it was the biggest baby mama drama hoax in history. I mean, makes sense. King Nirvana said, I think evil is evil. I think it's evil when while drinking it goes down the wrong hole. That's the proof of the devil. Yep, especially when you're on stream and mid trying to be mid sentence and yeah, evil.
He could stop it. And if he's all good, then he would want to stop it. And yet he doesn't. The evil continues. Philosophically rational people shouldn't hold inconsistent beliefs, so atheists argue that you're going to have to give something up, and the thing to give up is God.
Shout out to Calvin. Welcome to the party. Said evil exists, so politicians have something to do. That would be a great explanation. Welcome to the party, brother.
Beliefs. So atheists argue that you're going to have to give something up, and the thing to give up is God. Some theists, however, take a different route. They choose to give up one or more divine attributes. They argue that maybe God isn't powerful enough to stop evil, or maybe he's not knowledgeable enough to know about it, or maybe he's not even good enough to care about stopping it. That might sound...
I think that's the most reasonable. He's, the last one, what he said, maybe he's not
knowledgeable enough to know about it, or maybe he's not even good enough
to care about stopping it. And so this comes to the discussion of like perspective, and there's certainly issues that ants have to deal with, right? But you, as in a cosmically different realm, it wouldn't make sense for you to have an emotional investment in the issues of ants. And if there is a God, it makes perfectly good sense that he would be so far beyond the existence of this one tiny planet, and especially individual people, that is just like, I don't care. I got a whole universe to worry about. Like Captain Marvel in Endgame. Like, there's a lot of planets. Or was it Endgame? Yeah. There's a lot of planets,
powerful enough to stop evil, or maybe he's not knowledgeable enough to know about it, or maybe he's not even good enough to care about stopping it. That might sound weird to some of you, but if you've ever heard someone say that God is envious or petty or jealous, that's basically what they're doing. They're acknowledging the possibility that God is not actually good. If you've ever checked out the Old Testament, there's a God there who has some anger issues, one who's not at all opposed to wiping out entire populations just because of some bad behavior.
Not at all. Yeah, you said omniscient and omnipotent are redundant, in my opinion. If you can do anything, that means you can gain the knowledge of anything. For an omnipotent being must also be omniscient. Makes sense to me. Evil is live backwards. Coincidence or not? Maybe. I definitely believe in coincidences, but maybe that's the Illuminati. I don't know. Nick says, yes, you are more moral than the God of the Bible. Oh. Yes. Remember the Old Testament, he was vengeful, wrathful, jealous, etc. That doesn't sound moral to me. I mean, I've definitely gotten jealous, but never killed anybody. Never. I know. Crazy, right?
Who has some anger issues, one who's not at all opposed to wiping out entire populations just because of some bad behavior. Still, despite this scriptural evidence, many theists are committed to God's omni-attributes and are thus stuck with a problem. They have to resolve the logical problem of evil and find some way to explain why God would allow evil into the world. And if you can do that, then you are presenting what is known as a theodicy. A theodicy is an attempt to show that the existence of evil doesn't rule out the possibility of God's existence. Yes, this is such a big deal that there's a word for it.
Okay, so what are we saying here? A theodicy, an attempt to show that the existence of evil doesn't rule out the possibility of God's existence. So a theodicy would have to be an explanation of why God allows evil. A theodicy. Yeah, right? Zippy said Sodom and Gomorrah is nuked because an angel was raped. Think about it. Yeah. Like I said, evil is just outcomes, what we don't want. Yeah, I think I think that's a good way of putting it.
And the most popular theodicy is called the free will defense. This argument holds that God maximized the goodness in the world by creating free beings, and being free means that we have the choice to do evil things, a choice that some of us exercise.
So yeah, basically, if we have free will, then it's some people just are going to choose better choices morally than others. Damn. So I guess we are not going to get a tiebreaker here. We got 2 more votes. I think it's just going to go 50-50. Can the Abrahamic God sin? Ooh, one of my favorite questions in the world. What does free will even mean? I don't know. Now, Dan Dennett is great at using the mental gymnastics to just being like the feeling that nobody's holding you back from stuff. That's how he defines free will. But more of the Sam Harris camp, is that free will cannot. It doesn't make sense. There's so much of your life. There's so much circumstance around every quote unquote decision that you make that just by sheer cause and effect, it cannot be that you can make these free choices. You can make choices, but they are so heavily influenced by things that you did not choose that it's just will. It's not free will. Calvin said, free will is what makes good things good. Is it? How so? How so?
And being free means that we have the choice to do evil things, a choice that some of us exercise. This theodicy says that God doesn't create evil, but evil can't be avoided without depriving us of our freedom, and a world without freedom would be a worse place overall. This explanation preserves God's goodness because he created the best possible world, and also preserves his omnipotence and omniscience because although he does know about evil and could stop it, he has a good reason not to ensure our freedom. The problem is the free will defense only really addresses what's known as moral evil, or the evil committed on purpose by humans.
So moral evil is somebody doing a bad thing on purpose. That doesn't necessarily refer to things that are not a person being mean to another person. Hughes, so does free will mean the assertion that people's decisions are entirely dependent of their environment? Does free will mean no? It would mean the opposite. That despite the circumstances of their environment, that they that a person can make a choice free of those things. And so yep. And that's just not a thing you can do. And one of my favorite examples of this is I'll ask you to pick a flavor of ice cream. If we are to think that free will exists, then randomly choosing a flavor of ice cream on a live stream has got to be the freest of free decisions you could ever have. And yet, when I ask you, okay, give me an ice cream flavor, whatever you end up choosing is not in a vacuum. It is, you chose that for a reason that was outside of your control. So you might say vanilla because it's your favorite. Did you choose that it was your favorite? No, you didn't choose that. Maybe you love, maybe vanilla is your favorite and you feel obligated to not say your favorite because you don't want to be boring. So you say Rocky Road. You didn't choose to have that desire to think about saying vanilla and then deciding that you would rather do the other. We don't choose our preferences. So even at the basest level of freedom, it's not really free. It's based on your genetics. It's based on, people have said, well, I picked this because I had it the other day. Well, you didn't know that I was going to ask this question. And so the fact that you did that and now is affecting your answer, how is that free? How is it free? So moral evil is evil committed on purpose by humans.
Now, we're certainly responsible for a lot.
I don't know. Ice cream is ice cream. I mean, I definitely go for a good cookie dough or brownie batter, cake batter type stuff. I'm not usually going to go with vanilla, especially at like a Cold Stone Creamery type deal. But I am not ever complaining about some vanilla ice cream.
what's known as moral evil, or the evil committed on purpose by humans. Now, we're certainly responsible for a lot of bad stuff, but you can't blame us for everything. We can't be held responsible for the fact that the plates of the earth sometimes shift, causing destructive earthquakes, or that a storm might knock a tree over that falls onto someone's house. This type of evil, the stuff that we're not responsible for, is called natural evil, and the free will defense can't resolve natural evil. Religion is one of those philosophical issues that can make it hard for us to consider anything objectively. That's where fiction comes in handy, because fictional stories can let us see how hypothetical people deal with hypothetical situations. And with that in mind, let's go to the thought bubble.
Thought bubble. All right, the thought bubble. So here, before we do this, let's do another poll and just ask: do we have free will? I kind of have a feeling I know where this is, what direction this is going to go, but let's see. All right, into the thought bubble.
Deal with hypothetical situations. And with that in mind, let's go to the thought bubble for some flash philosophy. Let's consider the case of Ivan, a good Russian who wants to break up with God. In the novel The Brothers Karamazov, 19th century Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky presents us with Ivan, a man who claims to believe in God.
Okay, we got Ivan, a man who claims to believe in God. Ivan believes in God.
But Ivan finds the fact that God allows evil to exist to be so unforgivable that he decides that worshiping such a God would be just unconscionable.
I said shit. Me too. This is a kind of where I started, that I did believe, on my journey to atheism, that I did believe that the God existed. But the fact that God allows evil to exist is so unforgivable that I've decided worshiping such a God would be unconscionable. And so this is why people will say, what would it take for you to believe in God? I don't know. Some type of physical evidence that I know that I'm experiencing something, and that something is not anything other than a God. So I don't know what that would look like. But even if that were to occur, that is not necessarily going to then make me bow down and worship this being, because he's an asshole. Pretty big one, too. Yeah, right. A lot of people think vanilla is boring because they have no class, sir. That's the only explanation. Fancy is what they are. Well, I would argue that a more, like a cookie dough cake batter with sprinkles, that would be less fancy, right? That would be tacky. You want a nice, clean, a vanilla, maybe some orange sherbet or something. But yeah. Mike says, I don't think we have free will, but I live like we do. Bingo. That is how to do it. That is how to do it. Dilly dilly to that. You don't have free will, but we live like we do. Well said. He said you can disprove free will by slapping someone. Whoever you slap becomes angry. Did they become angry because of free will or because you slapped them? Yep, that's another great example of these are things that you're not choosing. And every little decision that you do actually make, again, you do have will, but it's just not free. It's based on the other things. You have the Dan Dennett version of freedom where nobody is, especially with the ice cream question, nobody's preventing you from choosing whatever flavor you want. But the neurological mechanism, the neurological process rather, that occurs is not a conscious thing. And we know this because we've done studies with fMRI, and there's different iterations of it, but there's different iterations of it where either you have two buttons, and either you have to pick left or right, or you have to pick it's a color or a number or whatever, but it's a choice between two things. And on the fMRI, again, I don't know exactly how to read an fMRI, but they showed that up to 7 seconds, 7 full seconds before a decision is made, the fMRI locks into whatever the choice is. And so they do like a base test where it's left, and so the signal looks like this, and if it's right, then the signal looks like that. And so then they can see that the signal is already going from the brain before the conscious person is pressing the button. How can it be free will if I can know, I'm not a god, if I can know what you are going to choose before you choose it? How can it be a free choice? King said you should have a third option on the poll. Third option being I can't be sure. Well, that's the obvious one. That's the cop out. I'm trying to force you into a lean left or lean yes or lean no. Calvin said evil is relative. Can you name an absolute evil? As somebody who thinks that morality universally is subjective, I would say short answer no, but with the caveat that if you don't think that murdering a child is an absolute evil, then I'm not really sure what you mean by evil. Now we have to back up and say, okay, well, what do you even mean by evil? So I think murdering an innocent child would be a good start for that question. That was a weird sentence. He said also vanilla is a great flavor. Sometimes a plain sweet flavor is what is needed. Yeah, I think people, just because of the fact that it's like, like a blank piece of paper is going to be white, blank and white, that usually goes together. And because there's so many other options that are visually pleasing, I think sometimes plain, which is not what vanilla is, it's vanilla flavor, but plain is what people think. Calvin said if evil is relative, then man created evil and not God. Ooh. That's a bar. I'm going to have to sit on that. I don't know if I agree, but it is a bar. I'm gonna sit on that. I'm going to think about that. Zippy said the Bible is fiction, if that helps. Yep. King said if Big Ice Cream had their way, they would control the will. Yep. Exactly. All right, let's dive back in here. So we got Ivan, who believes in God but won't worship him because he said he's a fucking asshole.
To be so unforgivable that he decides that worshiping such a God would be just unconscionable. Ivan goes so far as to declare that he is returning his ticket to heaven. If the same God who allows evil,
only if they're dead,
particularly the suffering and death of children, is also saving a cozy place in paradise for Ivan, well, Ivan wants nothing to do with it. So
I said shit. Me too. Shout out to Ivan. That's what's called standing on business. I'll give away my ticket to heaven because I'm not playing your fucking game.
His way out of the problem of evil is to deny God's goodness and to conclude that a bad God is not only unworthy of his worship, he's also not someone Ivan wants to spend eternity with.
Again, agreed.
It's like the ultimate unfriending. Now, some readers have found Ivan's decision to be noble and full of integrity. After all, if you really think God is letting all of this bad stuff happen, why would you want to be on his team? But other people think Ivan is being irrational. Why condemn yourself to an eternity in hell on principle?
Because that is the only way that we can create a society where we are continually progressing or at least surviving. Principles have to matter. There has to be a hill, not every hill. There has to be a hill on which you are willing to die. Stand for something or you will fall for anything. Mike said, I don't know what would make me believe in God, but he does. Ooh, you guys are on fire tonight. I completely agree. I don't know what would make me believe in God, but he certainly does. I'm doing what I can, but I'm just a lowly human being. He is God, and I am reaching, and for years been reaching out, and he has decided, no. You don't get to experience what everybody else experiences, and they're so sure that I exist. You don't get that. I didn't choose it. Talk about free will or lack thereof. Zippy said, God is nature. Nature is chaos. Why so serious? Yep. Hey, we got the man of steel himself, Midmost Mark. Welcome. Said free will is a thing among Christians, but in society, it's mostly just an illusion. It's an illusion for Christians too. But welcome. Nick said they're racist because vanilla is white. Okay, you can't be racist against white people, right? I know that ain't true because people have been racist against my white ass. I believe it. Calvin says, I agreed. Man needs principles. Maybe we can take a handful of them that are simple and we all generally agree on. Maybe 10 of them, easy to remember. Yeah. And maybe actually have them apply to making a good society, not worshiping other people, not thought police. How about, believe in merit, believe in community, believe in family, believe in ritual. Works for me. And at no point do you need to believe in any truth claim that cannot be proven in order to live out those principles. As I call it, the American identity. Calvin, this is exactly what my goal is here, to create this system, because there's too many of us who, whether we won't believe in God or whether we can't believe in God, if we don't have that, then we still need a moral structure to hang on to. And we see how easy it is for somebody to lose religion and then fall into the religion of government and become a leftist and all that stuff. So we need that structure to keep people who do not believe in the truth claims of religion to still understand the value of the principles that come from. Funkmaster General said, "What exactly would you like God to do for you?" Again, something that would give me a reason to believe that He exists. And as Mike said, I don't know exactly what that would be, but God certainly does. God certainly knows exactly what the answer to this question is. I don't. He said, "I found enough convincing evidence of the Abrahamic God. I would ally with him, regardless of his morals. Why fight him if he always wins? I'll take my ticket to heaven. Thank you very much." Well, I'll hang on to my principles. King Nirvana said, "The government puts stuff in our Klonopin to stop the mechanism that allows the hearing of divinity." Maybe. I mean, it could be. I definitely take Klonopin, so maybe. Shout out to Brad C. Welcome to the party. Actually, really quick. Hold on, going back to this. If that's the case, can God not overpower that mechanism? Not so omnipotent, are we? So Brad was saying, "I'm not religious at all, but that Olympic opening ceremony was very disturbing. I'm not familiar. I didn't see it. I'll have to check that out." All right. So yeah, on principles. Principles matter. If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for something.
But other people think Ivan is being irrational. Why condemn yourself to an eternity in hell on principle? For theists, it's another question that doesn't have an easy answer. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Now, unlike Ivan, a lot of people aren't willing to give up their ticket to heaven, so they need to work on a way to keep believing in and worshiping God, even though evil is still a thing. One way to do that is to argue that good can't exist without its opposite. The idea.
So this is what Zippy was saying earlier, that without darkness, there can be no light. Without death, there can be no life. Without evil, there can be no good. So let's dive into it and see what they got to say about it.
Though evil is still a thing. One way to do that is to argue that good can't exist without its opposite. The idea here is that you can't understand the concept of pleasure without pain. We don't know what it feels like to be warm if we haven't been cold. We can't understand the goodness of filling our bellies if we've never been hungry. But there's also another way, though it involves a little more work on your part.
Hold on. Before we even get there, we've been talking about bending of logic and so on and so forth. So the notion that we need evil in order to understand goodness, it doesn't follow with the same line. If you line of thinking, if you believe that God can bend logic, then He could show us what goodness is without having to have the counter, the opposite. You know what I mean? So if He can exist and not exist, or if He could create a boulder that can't be lifted but also can be lifted, then why can't He create a world where we understand goodness without evil?
Filling our bellies if we've never been hungry. But there's also another way, though it involves a little more work on your part. 20th century English philosopher of religion John Hick offered what's known as the soul-making theodicy. Unlike the traditional view that God created a perfect world, which we ruined through our own poor choices, Hick argued that God deliberately creates us unfinished, and our earthly lives are designed to toughen us up in a sense, kind of like boot camp. The harshness of life,
So we'll get back there. Yep, I agree with that. Shout out to Dietrich. Welcome to the party. So the problem I have feeling sympathy to your stance due to lack of having a divine intervention is you claim you reach out searching, but you reject him and he owes you some proof you'd probably deny. Yeah, that's how life works. That's how life works. You don't just get acceptance of a claim because you want it. You have to prove that claim. Sorry. What like you would not ever say this for anything else. This is special pleading. This is special pleading. It's different because it's God. You should just believe. But everything else in the world, if you just believe it for no reason, that would be silly. But God, this is the one thing that you should just believe because reasons. Nope. Sorry.
Our earthly lives are designed to toughen us up in a sense, kind of like boot camp. The harshness of life, Hicks said, gives us a robust texture and character that wouldn't be possible without an imperfect world. Hicks said that we're not just God's little pets, and he's not our benevolent owner whose sole job is to keep us in a safe, comfortable environment. Instead, he wants to build us, to train us into a particular kind of being. So we need an environment that's suited to the sort of growth that he wants.
So why can't he just give us that growth?
The sort that this world makes possible.
Why isn't it possible without evil?
A lot of people find these and other theodicies to be pretty compelling. However, the problem of evil actually goes a step deeper. What we've been talking about so far is the logical problem of evil. This problem can be resolved if we can explain why there's evil. But there's also the evidential problem of evil. This problem points out that we might be able to explain why evil exists, but we still can't explain why there's so much evil in the world.
So yeah, that the going back to Zippy saying, "Oh, we can't." Again, putting aside the notion that if we are saying that this God can bend logic, then we don't need the darkness in order to see the light. That's the logic that he can bend. So therefore, we don't need the evil to benefit from the good. Even if we say, okay, fine, well, that's for whatever reason we do actually need evil to understand goodness. Why does there need to be so much evil, and why does the level of evilness? What's the noun version of the level of evil? I don't know. That's so insidious and so baked into our humanity. Brad says you would think after 2,000 years would be tough enough by now. You'd think. Calvin said if everyone is always fed, they will not recognize their hunger. But again, that's the logical claim. But God supposedly has the ability. So then again, we're saying that God cannot do anything. God cannot bend the logic, as Hugh was implying earlier. So you disagree with Hugh that God could bend the logic. Therefore, you would say that God is not omnipotent because either he can create the boulder that's too heavy to lift when he can't lift it, or any boulder he creates, he can lift it, in which case he can't create the boulder that he can't lift. You got to give away one of these beliefs. They don't all make sense. Nick said, I don't by that argument. Don't what? What are we talking about? I don't buy that argument because I don't have to experience something to have compassion for someone else experiencing something bad. I agree with that, but not sure what it relates to, but definitely agreed. Hugh said, don't you appreciate the good of not experiencing harmful? Yeah, all the time, man. I can't tell you how much I love not experiencing harpsnargalufflers. But again, that's within the logic. I can't appreciate that because I've never experienced it. But God could give me the experience of knowing what it is, according to your logic. Again, I'm the atheist. I don't believe in any of this. But according to your beliefs, God could give me the experience of knowing how what I appreciate about not experiencing this, that, or whatever. Or is that something God cannot do? In which case, not omnipotent. Calvin said God does not exist in our three-dimensional space. Logic is a three-dimension concept. Okay, but again, so I'm with you. I'm just parroting what Hugh said when we were talking about can God create a boulder that he cannot lift. If we're saying God can do anything, then can he create a boulder that is too heavy for him to lift? Either he can't lift the boulder or he can't create that boulder. It's the same concept. The logic for us to understand is still the same. Whether God can mix with that logic is whatever. But that doesn't address the our understanding of it, or the arguments that are put forth. The idea is okay. Gotcha. Funkmaster said, men have the free will to choose how they live. Some choose evil. As we said, nature is what it is. Humans are part of nature. We are just variables. But the Abrahamic God is so humanized to the point it's unnatural. Hard to disagree with that.
Able to explain why evil exists, but we still can't explain why there's so much evil in the world. For instance, let's say that it's true that we really do need evil in order to understand goodness. In that case, why can't we understand the contrast through some sort of low-level evil, like paper cuts and head colds and having to work straight through our lunch hour every now and then? I mean, slow, painful deaths from cancer and city-destroying hurricanes, they don't really add anything valuable to our understanding of goodness.
No, they don't. So even if we could understand, oh, this is a negative thing, this is bad, this is evil, so on and so forth, so that now we have a frame of reference for that which can be good. Unless you, as an individual, are claiming to have experienced the worst possible experience that a human can experience, or rather, the worst experience that a human ever has experienced, then you don't have that experience of evil enough to be able to benefit from the good. You've never been tortured. You've never been RPA'd. You've never been, you never had cancer. You never had any of these things. So how could you appreciate your life? You don't even know how good you have it. Therefore, God needs to give cancer to other people so that you understand that he's good. What? Again, that all made no sense. Dietrich said, I have faith. I have faith in you. I have faith in most until proven wrong. You don't believe guilty until proven innocent, but you apply it to God. He isn't real unless he proves it directly to you. So no, the special pleading here I have is that I have the special pleading in the justice system that you're innocent until proven guilty. Everything else in my life. And that's because of the laws that we agree on as a society, to Blackstone's formulation, so on and so forth. But everything else in my life, I do not believe. Believe nothing except that anything is possible. That's what skepticism is. You don't accept anything unless you have reason to. So you can have faith in whatever you want, but I'm not being hypocritical. I am keeping to my values that unless you can prove A, B, C, D, I'm not going to believe A, B, C, and D. If I have a reason to, then I may or may not believe it. But just saying, oh, well, you're not going to believe it because you don't have any reason. Yeah, that's how I address everything in my life. You said the Abrahamic God is just, you already said that. Nick said bad and evil are different things, though. I would say evil has to be intentional. Bad can just happen. Something like that anyway. But that's what that's the difference they were talking about. What was it? The type of evil. Where was it? Oh yeah, the moral evil. So they were talking about moral evil. That's not the only type of evil. And if we are saying that God is creating this world and bad things happen, then God is the cause of the bad thing, and I would call that evil.
And city-destroying hurricanes, they don't really add anything valuable to our understanding of goodness, do they? If God were truly good, and if a negative contrast were really needed in order for us to understand the goodness of the world, then why wouldn't he just give us the very minimum dosage of necessary evil to achieve that goal? A counter-argument might suggest that there's always a good that corresponds to and is proportionate to any evil.
Is there, though?
But empirically, such goodness is really hard to find. What good, for example, could possibly correspond to the horrors of a genocide?
Nothing. Not a damn thing. Hugh said, is it possible that rather than God being humanized, the opposite is true? Historians widely accept that ancient Judaism was henotheistic. Henotheistic? They believed multiple gods existed. At the beginning of Genesis, they use the word they use for the creators of the world is Elohim, which is plural. Ancient portrayals of Yahweh may have been less powerful and more human-like than they are now. If that's the case, then the idea that most people have is the omni God. So if that was never what it was meant to be, then that's already a perversion of the religion. So we said, while flawed, the justice system uses a scientific method. The problem with the Abrahamic God is that you have to believe 1 + 2 = 4. If you do not, then it's 1 + 2 = 2. Make it make sense. Also, Kitty has no math. Yeah, I mean that so like when we see like a big trial or something, I may have my own skepticism about what actually happened, but because of Blackstone's formulation that it's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man be locked up, then we change the perspective that we have of sheer skepticism to create the environment that we want to be fair. But that doesn't mean that personally I'm not going to be skeptical of somebody who is charged of a crime and not yet convicted. I might, based on the circumstances, based on the evidence, I'm going to believe what is most reasonable to believe, what has the evidence behind it. Just like everything else.
Goodness is really hard to find. What good, for example, could possibly correspond to the horrors of a genocide? In cases like this, Hicks soul-making doesn't seem to cut it. You can't really argue that whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, because sometimes evil does kill us, a lot of us, and sometimes it kills us before we have a chance to grow and learn from the suffering we've endured. Despite these and other philosophical sticking points, a lot of people have found a theodicy that satisfies them, one that they believe reconciles the apparent evil in the world with God's existence. Others find all of these theodicies to be flawed, and they reject God's omni-nature, preserving their belief in God by finding him to be less than perfectly powerful or knowledgeable or good. Still,
guys, remember, we are again at 50-50. Do we have free will? Hit the poll. Replay gang, let me know in the comments below. King Nirvana said, I said shit. Me too. Hats need to be in production. Of what? I think I missed that one. Sorry. Zuby said, yes, Yahweh was more like Zeus, thunderous warrior god. But as culture became less nomadic and less raiding, the society and cult of the city needed to change God. It's almost as if it's a fairy tale. Nick said, got ya. I agree. Cancer is something that can happen with no apparent reason. But I can say watching it kill my dad sure seemed evil, even knowing it didn't have the thought of harmful intent. Well, again, and so sorry that you had to deal with this, but if you are somebody who believes that God created the world and God is in charge of all of this, then there's no space for God had nothing to do with this. Either God did it, or God didn't prevented it, or God did it all. God's responsible for all of this. Just look around. Look at the beautiful trees. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Either God did it all or God did none of it. You can't have it both ways. Emperor Guanwu, not familiar. I was talking about merchandise. Oh, yeah. That's with their slogan, I'm gay. Yeah, that would sell out like hotcakes. Why don't you guys buy some shirts, and then we'll add more shit to the site, TheIndianJesus.com. Mike said Jews see Christians like Christians see Mormons, as a cult spinoff. Yup, as they all are. Dietrich said, understood, but it's not that you want faith. That's my issue. I'm saying you claim to want to see, but you speak and relay media you enjoy that fits your reason to deny him. Your desire is an oxymoron. How so? You're correct that I do not want faith. I want knowledge. So what is oxymoronic about wanting knowledge, whatever that knowledge may be? I'm of the position right now that I don't think that a God exists, but I'm open to the idea that a God may exist. And again, God knows how to prove to me that God exists, and God chooses not to do that. I don't. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Again, just finger wagging, looking down your nose. So we said in the past, it took centuries to evolve society and technology. When war and raiding is the norm, you need hyper-bombastic gods and heroes. I guess.
Preserving their belief in God by finding him to be less than perfectly powerful or knowledgeable or good. Still others are
Guys, really quick, if you have not already, please do hit that like button. It is free, it is easy, and it helps me out so very much. Thank you.
convinced that the evil in the world is simply incompatible with the existence of a god, or at least any god worth worshipping. Wherever you end up, this is a problem that needs to be grappled with, and you'll probably be thinking about it long after this lesson has ended. After all, today we have considered the biggest problem in theism, the problem of evil. We've thought about different theodicies, or ways that we might reconcile the existence of evil and the existence of God, and we've explored whether those responses are sufficient. Next time, we'll consider what kinds of justification we need to have for our religious beliefs.
All right. So Zippy said in the past, we took out that one. Nick said, God didn't answer the prayers for him. So either he doesn't exist or he allowed my dad to die.
Bingo!
I hope a God wouldn't have allowed that. Yep. All right, we've gotten a majority, and the winner is no. We do not have free will. Agreed. Stephen Colbert, jeez, have you been here? Did I welcome you? I did welcome you, right? If not, I apologize, but welcome. Yo, you did. Yeah. Okay, welcome to the party. Either way, God is dead. We killed him. You and me, and also Darwin. I don't know. I mean, I'm doing my best. But there's only so much. We got. So there's two more videos in the philosophy of religion wheelhouse. We got two more here, and I think regardless of where we are, I think we're going to close it down there just because it's a good stopping point to have the religious philosophy kind of bookended, and then next Friday we can go into whatever else we have next. So I'd say free will is the ability to make decisions free of anything besides your consciousness. Calvin said, is there anything that could convince you that you had free will? I mean, again, maybe. I mean, never say never. Believe nothing except that anything is possible. So it is possible, sure, but I don't think so because free will doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how I would be able to have that free decision. I didn't choose my genetics. I didn't choose my preferences. I didn't choose so much about my life that then affected my preferences and desires, that any choice I'm going to make is going to be dependent on those other things. So I'm it's not that I don't understand it or I don't see it. And it's like, well, I don't see it. So where is it? That's more of the God thing. But free will, it's just like the notion of supernatural. Like if you were to ask me, is there anything that could convince you that the supernatural exists? I would say no, because I don't think that supernatural makes any sense. Things either exist or they don't exist. If they exist, they are part of nature. And if they don't exist, then obviously they are not part of nature. And so supernatural doesn't really mean anything. To me, at least. Bunkmasters. And supposedly there's records from ancient China of him telling the story of Jesus. Or not. Free will is rationality and the willpower to put it to use. Okay, not bad. Stephen Colbert said there are two aspects of free will that require unpacking. One, various levels of agency, and I don't know what that is. Is that? We have one. So what does that mean? Causa sui? Causa sui control? Or is that a typo? Latin term meaning cause with self or self-caused. It can be used in a variety of contexts. Self-determination. The idea that someone truly is responsible for their actions if they are causa sui. Am I saying that right? However, some argue that people are not truly responsible because their choices are influenced by their personality, values, beliefs, desires, and powers, as well as their location and time.
Bingo!
Which are themselves influenced by a complex causal chains. There you go. There you go. There you go. You do not. Yeah, we all have the various levels of agency. None of us have this causa sui. I'm surprised I haven't heard this term before, but I like it. I like it. Latin word up. Oh, I'm just gonna close out the whole window. I was gonna be so mad. But all right, so now we are diving into anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theories. And I want you to remember that this video is 8 years old. So it's going to be a very interesting look back, as obviously we've just had an update to what an anti-vaxxer is. Steven said Nietzsche had the ultimate quote on free will and the problem with viewing it as a causa sui. All right, lay it on us.
Crash Course Philosophy.
For generations, just about everybody in the United States got vaccinations, and I'm sure there will be no conversation about this in the comments. And as a result, diseases like measles were all but eradicated. But in 1998, a study published in a scientific journal linked vaccines with autism. Even though that study was later discredited, ever since then, a small but vocal subset of parents have refused to vaccinate their kids. Now, measles are back, as is whooping cough, mumps, and other diseases that
Like COVID.
that were nearly wiped out. Children's lives are being endangered because some parents are acting on beliefs that have no scientific evidence to support them. So why am I talking about this on Crash Course?
Wait, guys, come on. Can I just get 2 more likes? I know there's 2 of you that are here that have not hit the like button. Just do me that favor. It's so easy, and it really, really matters. I wish it didn't, but it really matters. Please just hit the like button.
Philosophy? Normally, when we talk about responsibility, we're talking about things that you do. But in philosophy, we sometimes face other obligations. Some philosophers have argued that we all have epistemic responsibility. That is, responsibility we have regarding our beliefs.
So, responsibility we have regarding our beliefs. How is this going to affect you and the world around you?
Epistemic responsibility is an especially interesting area of philosophy because it's where many of its subdisciplines overlap, where epistemology brushes up against philosophy of religion, which bumps into ethics. And philosophers might argue that we live in a world that could probably use a lot more epistemic responsibility, or it...
There we go. I owe you my life, sir. I owe you my life. Very much appreciated.
At least more people who understand what it is. Anti-vaxxers, climate change deniers, conspiracy theorists. The world is full of people who hold beliefs without any evidence.
And those 3 listed are not those people.
Not only that, they, like most of us, encourage others to share their beliefs. But over the past 200 years or so, philosophers have developed some pretty compelling responses to this phenomenon. A few thinkers have come up with useful ways of thinking about the beliefs we have and the harm they can cause and what responsibilities go along with having them. Meanwhile, others have argued that we can sometimes hold beliefs without any proof. It's not about vaccines or global warming or the moon landing, but about God.
Nope. DFTBA!
W.K. Clifford lived in England in the mid-1800s, where the only vaccine that existed was for smallpox, and even that earned its share of scorn and ridicule at the time. But Clifford, who was both a mathematician and a philosopher, would probably have some very strong opinions about today's anti-vaxxers. Because Clifford...
And again, today meaning 8 years ago, not today.
And a philosopher would probably have some very strong opinions about today's anti-vaxxers. Because Clifford was one of the leading proponents of epistemic responsibility of his time, he most famously and bluntly put it this way: "It is wrong always and everywhere for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence."
It is wrong always and everywhere for anyone to believe anything upon sufficient evidence. Perhaps another way to say, believe nothing except that anything is possible.
And instead of using vaccinations as an example, Clifford told the story of a ship owner. He said, suppose there was a guy who
Is this the ship of
owned a
Theseus?
ship that he knew was old and decrepit
Oh,
and
no,
hadn't
okay.
been inspected in a long time. That
All right, old ship hasn't been inspected in a long time.
ship was scheduled to make a transatlantic voyage, and the owner worried that it might not make it. But overhauling the ship would be pricey and time-consuming. In time, the owner talked himself into believing that the ship was seaworthy. The ship set
Okay, so the ship is not seaworthy, but he's convinced himself that he believes it is. Funkmaster said, how does a self-cause make you like a god? Causing your own problems just makes you dumb. Fair. Calvin said, if God literally spoke to you in your mind and said, "What up? I'm God," Bruce Almighty style, would you believe it or dismiss it as a hallucination? Dismiss it as a hallucination. But again, there is something that God could do that would make me believe, and he doesn't do it. Stephen Colbert said, the desire for freedom of will in the superlative metaphysical sense, such as still holds sway, unfortunately, in the minds of the half-educated. The desire to bear the entire and ultimate responsibility for one's actions, oneself, and to absolve God, the world, ancestors, chance, and society therefrom involves nothing less than to be precisely this causa sui, and with more than Munchausen daring to pull oneself up into existence by the hair out of the slough of nothingness. Shout out to Nietzsche. Yummy, yummy, yummy. And a shout out to our boy Calvin, who said, I use my free will to give you $2. And we very, very, very much appreciate it. Of course, a treat for my co-host Morty. I would just argue that if I had never questioned whether or not you had free will, would you have given this super chat? Do you really have the free will? Do you really have the free will? But thank you very, very, very much. Hey, we got Ayush Gupta in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. So the ship is not seaworthy. What? What? We're coming in hot. We ain't. That's not that bad. It's just not seaworthy. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, right. Shout out again to Calvin. He said, you created the opportunity, but I made the decision. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So the ship is not overhauled, but he believes, he genuinely believes, despite the evidence to the contrary, he believes that this ship can make it.
And time-consuming. In time, the owner talked himself into believing that the ship was seaworthy. The ship set sail, then it sank, and hundreds of people drowned. But the owner, he collected insurance money from his loss, and no one blamed him for the tragedy. Now, most people would agree that the ship owner was responsible for the deaths of the ship's passengers, but Clifford went even further.
Of course, he's responsible for the death of the passengers. He had the evidence that this was not a seaworthy ship, but he convinced himself. This isn't a case of, I know that it's not seaworthy, but I'm going to send them out anyway. He convinced himself, no, this is fine. This will work. But they die. He was wrong. He convinced himself of something that he should have known better. And these people died. So, of course, that is his fault. But Clifford goes even further.
He argued that the owner would have been guilty even if the ship managed to make the trip safely. Because
even if the trip was made safely, he still did exactly the same thing.
He was guilty of accepting a belief without sufficient evidence, and whether that actually leads to harm or not, he still has done wrong epistemically and morally. Now, you might argue, don't I have the right to believe whatever I want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone?
I mean, you have the right, but you then have the responsibility.
Yeah, good question. Clifford argued that there is no such thing as a private belief because we all talk about our beliefs. Some of us do it a lot, and it causes our beliefs to spread. But even if you never vocalize a belief, it still influences the way you act and the way others perceive you. So in this way, a belief can spread subtly, insidiously, without a word being spoken. Think about other kinds of beliefs that lack evidence, for example, sexist beliefs. Imagine a modern-day sexist at an American university.
And again, we're going back 8 years. So I don't, I mean, I've watched this before. I see some green in the hair. I don't know how woke infused this is going to be. So hopefully when we're talking about sexism, we're talking actually about sexism and not some woke version of not meeting equity or whatever.
So these people are going to know that actually expressing their sexist views isn't going to fly. But a sexist's beliefs, even if they're never overtly stated, tend to show through in the ways they interact with women and speak of them. So no matter what, you know them, and you know their views, and you know their views subtly influence others, particularly if they're a person in a position of authority or respect.
I think that's so funny that I'm, the concept is, am I saying that right? Causa sui? Or is it causa sui? Causa sui? So all right, I got to get that right. I got to get that right. They're not going to give me the thing?
Kazasuai denotes something which is
Kazasuai? Okay, we'll go with Kazasuai for now. But yeah, the fact that she's so dumb, it's like coming full circle, where you're almost inadvertently hitting Kazasui. Okay. Yeah, that she's going full circle and actually hitting on something enlightening without meaning to do so. So I can't believe the Dem candidate for president is being memed about the human free will problem. The world that we live in. The world that we live in. Hughes, so these statements being made in the crash course video all assume the existence of objective morality. So they're not assuming it. They're taking it on the basis of the philosophers who we're talking about. So those the people who we're talking about have the objective morality. So it's not as much, sometimes they're talking more about the concepts, and sometimes they're talking about the philosophers themselves, and specifically within this aspect of the philosophy of religion. Then, like we said, we're focusing on the beliefs of the philosophers that came to this. But you are absolutely right that is a that's what's happening. They're assuming the existence of objective morality. But you have to do that in order to engage with the religious beliefs. So we could have the argument about whether or not morality is objective or subjective, but that's a different conversation than what's going on here. Fungmaster said, I believe I'm a wombat. Cute, cuddly wombat with a big butt. You can believe whatever you want, but is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? The epistemic responsibility. Now, if you're just living this way, maybe that's a little. Maybe you're not doing anything wrong. If you just think to yourself that you're a wombat. But what if you're going into schools and giving speeches about, well, actually, guys, I'm so. This is something that you can do too. Now we have a different situation altogether. Stephen Gobert said, "Quote: You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you." Kazasui. Just not being dumb. I would disagree. I would disagree. I think she is very dumb. All right. So we're talking about sexism.
Their views subtly influence others, particularly if they're a person in a position of authority or respect. Since our views always have the potential to harm others, W.K. Clifford argued that we have an epistemic responsibility only to believe things for which we have evidence. And if you don't have evidence, you are morally obligated to refrain from the belief. Basically, you should withhold judgment until you investigate the situation.
With everything. With everything. That applies to everything. So yes, D-Trix, right now we're talking about God, but that is how I approach everything. That I don't believe something unless I have a reason to believe it. It doesn't have to be a strong reason, faith exists, but the fact is you don't need to, I completely lost my train of thought. Was I saying anything important? I don't think I was saying anything important. All right, moving on.
Obligated to refrain from the belief. Basically, you should withhold judgment until you investigate the situation. Let's head over to the thought bubble to explore.
Now, again, what I said was that it's ironic that she is dumb, but making a good point. She is dumb, but making a good point. That's the dramatic irony. You said, ask the liberals if it's an epistemologically, ask the liberals if it's an epistemological. Ask the liberals if it's an epistemologically wrong. It wouldn't be an. If it is epistemologically wrong to believe that you are a different gender, especially when said belief lets you compete with an advantage against other players in sports. And of course, they would say no, and of course, they would be wrong. Calvin said she also talked about the passage of time, but that doesn't make her a clock. That's what I'm talking about.
More with some flash philosophy.
The flash
Tuesday, and your
bubble.
teacher tells you that this week there will be a pop quiz. And she's nice enough to even define for you what she means by this. A pop quiz, she says, is a quiz that you can't know is coming in advance. You reason, however, that such a quiz is impossible, so you never study for it.
She just told you. She just told you it can't be a pop quiz. Now it's just a quiz.
Here's your reasoning. The quiz can't be on Friday, because if Wednesday and Thursday go by with no quiz, then you would know that it was coming on Friday, since that would be the last possible day. So Friday's out. But that means that it can't be on Thursday either, because by the end of class on Wednesday, you would know that the quiz would be happening on the next day. But since it can't be happening on Thursday or Friday, it also can't be on Wednesday, because that's the only day left. So you would know in advance that it was coming.
Brilliant!
Now, any amount of rationalization that will convince you that you don't have to study might sound pretty sweet, but in this case, you're probably going to regret it, because after all, if your teacher tells you that there's going to be a quiz, chances are there is going to be a quiz. The fact that you've constructed a brilliant mind game that proves that it won't isn't going to make that quiz not happen. So beliefs about vaccines and shipworthiness may be irresponsible because of the danger they pose to others, but this case demonstrates that irresponsible beliefs can be damaging to you as well. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Clifford made a pretty convincing case for epistemic responsibility, and it's worth pointing out that his beef wasn't only with ship owners or kids who didn't study. One thing his arguments were meant to show is that religious belief is epistemically irresponsible. Belief in a God whose existence can't be proven was simply blind faith.
Belief in a God whose existence can't be proven was simply blind faith. And even if it's not completely blind, if you don't have reason to believe, then it is irresponsible to hold that position.
He said, and blind faith leads a person to ignore other facts and arguments, causing them to live an unexamined, unthoughtful life that.
And this is my big argument about why there is a reason for us to dig into this. And there is a level of spirituality or closeness with God that we don't know might be available, but we are sticking to, no, the Bible is right, Christianity is right, and then that's it. How do you know that? How do you know that you can't be closer to God? How do you know that there is some update? How do you know that God didn't change his mind? You don't know these things. You just blindly believe them. Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
It leads a person to ignore other facts and arguments, causing them to live an unexamined, unthoughtful life that Clifford described as one long sin against mankind. Unsurprisingly, this idea was met with some counter-arguments. Let's hear from one of his interlocutors.
All right, so I believe, but here we got William James coming up.
19th century American philosopher and
I like his thing. Drink first, think later. Indeed, we will. Indeed, we will.
psychologist William James took issue with Clifford's thesis that it is immoral to believe in something with insufficient evidence. James acknowledged that one of his beliefs that was most important to him, his belief in God, lacked evidence. So he set out to demonstrate that certain beliefs can be held morally, even if there's nothing you can really point to back them up. Now,
oh, so you're an academist. Oh, okay, so she got more letters after her name, so she must be smarter than me. Okay, all right.
James recognized that it would be ridiculous to say it's okay to believe in just anything you wanted. So he narrowed down his claim to argue that when you adopt a belief, you have options, and the nature of those options can basically determine the moral defensibility of the beliefs you end up holding.
So let's see what that is. When you adopt a belief, you have options. The nature of those options can basically determine the moral defensibility of the beliefs you end up holding. And so, again, this is definitely saying that there is a level of moral indefensibility of holding certain positions. Now, we would all agree that this is the case. We would all agree that it is morally indefensible to say, I am allowed to murder puppies. I don't think that's a crazy I think if anybody disagrees, let me know. But I think we can all say it is morally indefensible to hold the position that it is okay to kick puppies. That doesn't mean that if you're getting attacked by a puppy that you, and the only thing you can do to, or let's say a child is being attacked by a puppy and the only thing you can do is kick. That's not what we're saying. To just go around and kicking random puppies being a good thing is a morally indefensible position.
Specifically, he said the options you face when choosing a belief could either be live or dead, forced or unforced, and momentous or trivial.
Okay, so now we have these three categories, three different categories. Is it live or dead, forced or unforced, and momentous or trivial?
You face a live option when you're considering a belief that you could actually see yourself having. For instance, maybe you've never had a pumpkin spice latte, but you love pumpkin.
Put some respect on my name. Sorry, too easy. Too easy. Okay, live option.
Considering a belief that you could actually see yourself having. For instance, maybe you've never had a pumpkin spice latte, but you love pumpkin and you love lattes and you love spice, so you hypothesize that you would enjoy a pumpkin spice latte.
So let's use this. Funkmaster is throwing shade at me, saying I don't know how to suck a dick. Well, I don't, but I could see myself being able to suck a dick pretty well. I have a dick. I've had my dick sucked. I think that it's perceivable that if I was in a position where I had to suck a dick, I'd be able to do it. So that is a live option. That is a live option. Hey, if you can't handle it, bro, this is high tier thinking. All right, this is high tier thinking. Shout out to Zippy DSM Lee over on Rumble with the Rumble Rant. Thank you, sir. So, she's like Zippy. Wait, sorry. Let's get more to his treat. Oh, thank you very, very much. Said, she's like Zippy, a master of data corruption. Yeah, right. Willie Brown. Well, I mean, how do we know? How do we know that she's even good? I'm just saying. Just because you got your dick sucked doesn't mean it went well. We all know the difference between and you know what I mean? I mean, just by looking at her, I would assume that, she's the original Hawk Tuah girl, but we don't know. We don't know. We do not know. All right, live option, something you can see yourself having. You don't have the experience. So again, this is something that you've never experienced, but you could see yourself believing the position, whatever it is.
That's a live option for you because you can imagine yourself believing that.
Hey, send in those super chats. You never know, bruh.
That you'd like a pumpkin spice latte. On the other hand, you probably can't even entertain the possibility that you would enjoy like a dog food spice latte. Try as you might, you just can't imagine accepting that option as an actual belief. So that's a dead option to you. Now, a forced option is one in which whatever you do, you've made a.
So let's stop there. Between dead option and live option is just a position that you don't hold, but you could see yourself holding. A dead option is a position you don't hold, and you know that you wouldn't hold that belief regardless. And that still don't mean shit. That still don't mean shit. If Willie Brown's like, hey, you suck my dick, you got the promotion, and she's like, fine, I'm gonna give you the worst blowjob ever. Deal's a deal. Deal's a deal.
Would enjoy like a dog food spice latte. Try as you might, you just can't imagine accepting that option as an actual belief. So that's a dead option to you. Now, a forced option is one in which whatever you do, you've made a choice. You can't not choose. Stay in or go out is a good example of a forced option. You
can't not make a decision to either stay in or go out.
Have to do one or the other. You can't wait and decide later, because as you wait to decide, you have stayed in and thus you have made your choice. But unforced options are those where you can just opt out of choosing. If I let you pick peanut butter or ham and cheese, you can always just decide to have neither. So your choice is an unforced option. A momentous option is one that if you choose it, stands the chance of radically changing your life for the better. Accepting an opportunity to go to the International Space Station, for example, could be momentous. But the option to have French fries with your burger could be trivial. Eat them, don't eat them. Either way, not going to make a huge difference in your life. Now, James said.
So again, I wish he was pull up the thing again. So
considering a belief that's forced or unforced and momentous or trivial.
So if we're looking at the categories again, just quickly, a live belief is something that you could see yourself holding. Dead would be I can't see myself ever holding that position. A forced position is there is no non-option. So you're either it is A or B. There's nothing in between. Unforced would be something that has multiple options, and you just don't have to choose one. A momentous belief is something that is going to be a big deal in how you live your life. And trivial is just what it sounds like, and not that big of a deal.
For example, could be momentous. But the option to have French fries with your burger could be trivial. Eat them, don't eat them. Either way, not going to make a huge difference in your life. Now, James said that if you're considering whether to believe something for which there's not sufficient evidence, it's permissible to still believe it so long as it is a live, forced, and momentous option.
And it also says here that James agreed with Clifford that if evidence can be found, you have an obligation to find it. If evidence can be found, you have an obligation to find it. And so that is why I still feel the obligation, despite the fact that I do not believe that there is a God, to still try to find the evidence. I don't know what that evidence would be. I don't know anything outside of what other people who seem to have this experience of God who have told me. So I will talk to God. I will try to experience God. I will try to do all of these things because I have a moral obligation. It would be wrong of me to simply believe no God exists without doing the further work, and even a greater of a misstep to be up here talking to you about how I don't believe in God while not even trying to find any evidence of God, which I do, and I failed.
It's permissible to still believe it so long as it is a live, forced, and momentous option.
Okay, so then again, going to the three, as long as it is a live, forced, and momentous. So as long as it's something you, even if you don't have the evidence, even if it's something that, even if there, whether there is evidence, there's not evidence that you could see yourself believing it. If you can't make a non-decision, and if it's a really big deal, then that's still permissible, according to Clifford, to believe it, which would be God.
It's permissible to still believe it so long as it is a live, forced, and momentous option. And religious belief just happens to fill all of those criteria. First,
right. Shout out to Liberty Twitcher. Welcome to the party. Said it's okay to believe in something for which there is no evidence, as long as you're more comfortable believing it than not. For example, if I want to believe that people of color are disproportionately and unfairly impacted by our legal system, then I can reject evidence to the contrary, because believing otherwise would bother me. What? Okay, hold on. It's okay to believe in something for which there's no evidence, as long as you're more comfortable believing it than not. Hard disagree. So what if I want to believe that I have evidence that you should be locked up? And it's okay for me to believe that and go on the internet and talk all about how Liberty Twitcher does despicable things and should be locked up because it makes me feel better. No, the truth is what matters. So welcome to the party, but I got to hard disagree with you there. Stephen Colbert said there will always have to be balance struck between collective and individual flourishing. If we can manage to productively cooperate, we can boost our productivity exponentially versus being isolated individuals. History has shown we can accomplish both when we run culture and society rationally. Indeed. And how do we do that? We have to understand what are true beliefs and what are false beliefs. What is reality? Nobody's truth, the objective truth. The objective truth. It's not okay to just go around believing things just to make you feel better. Like the transes. It's not okay. It's not okay to go around telling children that you can change your gender just because it makes you feel better. That is not okay. No, there's not. There never has been and there never will. They will tell you that. They will lie to you because they want to go with what is not the truth and base their lives on falsities. But no, there is never. The truth is the truth. There are multiple things that are true, but none of those things conflict with each other because they're all true. Truth is not a choice. My truth. That is not a thing. That is not a thing. Again, no, they can't. Men cannot ever be women. Men can't be women today. Men can't be women yesterday. Men can't be women tomorrow. That is not a thing. To believe otherwise is exactly proper. Why? Because it is true. I think so. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. Oh my God, did you really just say that? Yes. Men cannot be women. Men cannot be women. Men cannot be women. All right. Bye, Twitch. What did I miss here? Did I get this? A shout out to the Funk Master General again with the $10. Oh my goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much. Let's give him a double here. There you go. There you go. That's right. Every donation comes with a treat for my co-host, Morty. Thank you, thank you, thank you, sir. Out sponsoring yourself once again. Very, very much appreciated.
Forced and momentous option, and religious belief just happens to fill all of those criteria. First, James said believing in God is a live option for himself and a whole lot of other people. He also argued that religious belief is a forced option. That's because he didn't buy the idea that agnosticism was really a thing.
Agnosticism is a thing, but that doesn't mean that if you have to choose, like, do you have a God belief? There's no in between. That is a forced option. Do you hold a belief in a God or gods? If you're not sure, well, actually, I think he's about to say that. If you're not sure, then no, you don't have that belief. That doesn't mean you believe the opposite, that there is no God, but you don't have that belief.
That religious belief is a forced option. That's because he didn't buy the idea that agnosticism was really a thing. He figured that withholding judgment is the same as not believing, so you either believe in God or you don't. Finally, James thought religious belief is momentous. It has the possibility to greatly improve your life. So he concluded that we are justified in believing in God in the absence of evidence through faith alone. The problem is, if we're justified in believing in God in the absence of evidence, then we're also justified in believing that it's okay to not vaccinate our kids, because that, too, is an option that can be described as live, forced, and momentous. So unfortunately, philosophy can't just make all of the baseless beliefs in the world go away, but it can help you argue against those ideas intelligently.
And clearly, we need that. I don't know. Like, okay, Steven said it doesn't make much sense to say there's only one truth. Which perspective are you taking to claim such? Objective reality. Perspectivism is the epistemological principle that perception of and knowledge of something are always bound to the interpretive perspectives of those observing it. Okay. So then depending on, so is my screen, so I have my phone here. So I'm going to turn it this way, or I'm going to turn it this way. Is the screen facing the computer or is it not? You don't know, right? So you have a belief one way or the other. It's not a forced belief. You could say, I don't know. But let's say you were in a position where, somebody has a gun to your head and you had to choose. Is Letch's phone screen facing the camera or is it facing away? There is no our truth. There's no perspective. No, that is either it is facing it is facing the camera or it is not facing the camera. I don't think that's that complicated. And I don't know if you guys even really believe what you're saying. I kind of feel like you're just fucking with me. Moving on to my least favorite argument for the existence of God. I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager. And guys, we did just pass the 2-hour mark. So if you would like to keep the party raging, you know how to do it.
Squarespace. Share your passion.
Remember when you were little and your mom told you to eat your spinach so you'd grow up big and strong? Or in college when you set your clock 10 minutes ahead to fool yourself to get to class on time? We all engage in useful fictions, things that we choose to believe because they just make life easier. And when we do this, we are being pragmatists. Pragmatism is based on the theory that finding true beliefs is less important than finding beliefs that work practically in the living of your life. In this view, it doesn't really matter whether spinach actually helps muscle growth. If eating spinach will improve your life and believing that it will make you strong convinces you to eat it, then it's a useful belief, which is all that matters. Pragmatism is relatively recent as philosophical movements go, but some of the most well-known American pragmatists, like William James, and I would argue Indiana Jones, have an ideological ancestor in the 17th century mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal. You can be a pragmatist about basically anything: knowledge, spinach, metaphysics, ethics, or whether it's actually 11:30 right now or 11:40. But Pascal took a pragmatic approach to one of the biggest issues in philosophy: God's existence.
EFTBA. Yep. So, I was going to ask if you guys are familiar with it, but either way, I think it's important to because again, I'm sure most of us are familiar with it. But even if you are, this is that's why we're going through the crash course to really fully understand the basics of all of these things. Indiana Jones.
Pascal was a theist, which, given his place in history, may not be all that surprising. But what is weird is that Pascal's argument for God's existence had very little to do with whether God was actually real. Instead, it had everything to do with whether belief in his existence was practical. This reasoning became known as Pascal's wager, and it's really a gambler's argument for religious belief. Pascal's thinking went like this: either God exists or he doesn't, and reason will never give us an answer. So you must choose blindly to believe or not to believe in God. You can't abstain from choosing. If you choose to believe in God and he exists, you get an infinite reward, heaven. If you choose to believe in God and he doesn't exist, you're not really out much. If you choose not to believe in God and he doesn't exist, you also don't gain much. If you choose not to believe in God and he does exist, you get infinite punishment, hell. Therefore, the smart bet is to put your chips on God existing every time.
So this is the wager. Actually, let me back to that.
Infinite punishment, hell.
So this is the wager. So if you could, if you play this out again, God either exists or God doesn't exist. There's no in between. There can't be an in between option. So God exists or God doesn't exist. So if you choose to believe in God and he does exist, you get eternity in heaven. Choose to believe and God doesn't exist, nothing really happens. It's a trivial decision. But if you choose not to believe in God and he exists, you go to hell, so on and so forth. The problem with this, of course, is that we don't choose that in which we believe. That is not a choice.
The slightest chance that God exists, even if that chance is existing every time. Pascal argued that if there is the slightest chance that God exists, even if that chance is low, only a fool would bet against his existence, given that the stakes are so high. In the face of incomplete information, Pascal decided we should play the odds and believe whatever offers us the greatest benefit. It's kind of brilliant, right? But there are a couple of ways you could argue against this. You might say Pascal's done the math wrong, that choosing to walk the straight and narrow in the service of an imaginary deity actually does cost you something. Like you might miss out on stuff that you would otherwise want to do, like sleeping in on Sunday mornings or...
Oh yeah. I did not experience legitimately sleeping in until I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. In my household, it was not allowed to sleep in. And because of the fact that, you know, we had stuff on, I always had activities on Saturdays and church every Sunday, never got to sleep in. Now, you may say that that's not the biggest deal, and I would agree, but it's not nothing. Shout out to Ruthless Admin in the building. Welcome to the party. Said any eternal existence sounds like hell to me. I agree with you. I agree. I want to experience everything that this world, this universe has to offer, and then I'm done. I'm right there with you. Welcome to the party. Seems that our genes' overriding purpose is successful replication, whereas individual perspective may be to not have children. Did I miss something? All right. He said, if there's no evidence of God, then there's just as likely to be a God that rewards Christians and punishes atheists as there is to be a God that rewards atheists and punishes Christians.
Bingo.
Yep, indeed.
Living a heavy metal rock star lifestyle, or I don't know, coveting stuff. By this logic, you'd lose out if you abstained from all of that in the name of something that ended up not being real. But Pascal, like William James, disagreed with this line of reasoning because he saw great personal benefit in being a believer. He thought theists have better lives not because God is blessing them with some kind of reward, but because belief simply has inherent benefit.
And I don't necessarily disagree with this. I don't disagree that the feelings that you get from believing in what I see as false can have benefit. My contention is that how do you know that those benefits are not available through the truth and reality?
It's like the security of feeling that the world is ordered and meaningful. That someone...
What if it's not? What if it's not meaningful and ordered? Is it impossible to feel any type of security? Or do you just have to live that life and build the philosophical structure to be able to understand that despite the fact that the world is not ordered and meaningful, that I can create my own meaning and all of that stuff.
Belief simply has inherent benefits, like the security of feeling that the world is ordered and meaningful, that someone is always looking out for you, that death isn't the end. Now, even if you agree that religious belief is comforting, you might still question Pascal's motives. Does believing in something because it's the safest bet really win you a ticket to heaven?
I would say if your God is that dumb that you can trick him by being like, yep, I totally believe, then again, not a God that I want to worship. And yeah, as he brings up, this only brings up the Abrahamic God, and that is not the only option. Next is, I wonder why God couldn't be understanding, and rather than making our afterlife dependent on what we claim to believe, judge us based upon our actions in our lives. Well, that would be too rational and fair and compassionate. God ain't like that. How can you move? I don't understand the question.
Doesn't God want you to be less self-interested when it comes to believing in him? Well, not according to Pascal. He thought how and why you choose to believe doesn't really matter, because the fact is God doesn't care how he gets you, as long as he gets you. Okay, so how do you will yourself into believing in something just because that's where the smart money is?
You can't, bro. You can't.
Easy. Pascal said you essentially brainwash yourself into true beliefs.
Oh, that's a great way to go about life, is brainwashing yourself on purpose.
So that what starts out as self-interest can eventually grow into an honest conviction.
Fake it till you make it.
And you do this basically by walking the walk and talking the talk, start going to church, start praying, hang out with other believers. At first, it might seem weird and disingenuous, but over time, it'll become an ingrained part of your belief system. You know what it's kind of like? Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's probably pop culture's finest allegory of pragmatic belief in action. Throughout the whole Indiana Jones trilogy, I'm just going to pretend the fourth one was never made, Indy is painted as a pretty agnostic character. He hunts religious relics for a living, but the powers that those relics are said to possess are just...
Wait, I thought 2 + 2 did equal 5. That's what Robin DiAngelo told me. Oh no, they got to me already! Some people have psyches which can adapt better to higher truth levels versus others. So I think you're jumping ahead. I think you're jumping ahead because we're not at that level of philosophical discussion on truth and knowledge yet. We're not there. I mean, you're making good points, but it's not in the context of what we're talking about. You're jumping way ahead. The purpose of this series is to give people who don't have the knowledge that you clearly have. I mean, you clearly have it. You are clearly more well-read on this than I am. But that's not what we're doing. We're introducing the very basic levels of this stuff. So when you're trying to force in higher level stuff, it creates the exact problem that I'm trying to solve by having people who are not familiar with this stuff, talking about, well, truth is, it could be, and epistemic truth is, instrumental truth is, people don't know what that means. We're not there yet. You have to go in order or people are going to be confused. You're not the only one watching this. And so I appreciate that you have this knowledge and that you're sharing it with us. But you have to realize that we're not there yet. We're not doing that yet. We're on Pascal's wager. There are people here who are not very familiar with Pascal's wager. Not because they're stupid, but just because it's something that people haven't looked into before. So you're jumping too far ahead. You're not wrong. I'm just saying we're not ready for that level of discussion yet. Nick said rationality and God don't mix, from my experience. Yeah, agreed. All right, what we got here?
Agnostic character. He hunts religious relics for a living, but the powers that those relics are said to possess are
okay, Terrence,
just hocus pocus to him. So at the end of the Last Crusade, spoilers, Indy manages to find the Holy Grail in an ancient temple after getting through a bunch of booby traps. And each trap is kind of a test of faith. He has to know where to kneel, how to spell the name of God, and he has to jump into an abyss with the hope that he will somehow survive. Indiana ends up passing all of those tests, but not because he suddenly stops being agnostic and starts believing in God. At least not that we know of. Instead, he just does what he has to do. He's literally going through the motions. There's something about that would make Pascal proud, because to him, it would probably look like Indy was on the path to eventually truly believing. Now,
would he though? I don't know that follows. Maybe. And yeah, I do think that you can brainwash yourself, but I don't think that is a good way to, if you have to brainwash yourself, something is amiss. Can you give me any other experience, any other realm where brainwashing yourself is a good option? Yeah. Spoiler alert for the 30-year-old movie. I mean, I never saw it, but that's one of the other movies that's fallen into the 70s and 80s movies that I just missed out on from having immigrant parents. So join the Discord. We're doing a bunch of movie nights where I'm gonna see all of this stuff for the first time. We've already done RoboCop, and I think we're trying to set up Lord of the Rings next, because I also haven't seen Lord of the Rings or any of the Star Wars. So just saying, it is free to join the Discord, but that would be for members. So become a member to join the after party.
Pascal proud, because to him, it would probably look like Indy was on the path to eventually truly believing. Now, some critics have pointed out that when it comes to a really usable belief system, you're going to need more than just fake it till you make it. For example, maybe you were one of
I saw that.
those kids raised in a religious household who was just never feeling it. We all know people who were immersed in a culture of religious belief from birth, but end up rejecting those beliefs as adults. And for those people, trying to force yourself to believe is not only ineffective, it can lead to some pretty serious unhappiness, the exact opposite of what a pragmatist wants.
So yes, I agree with you. But if we are, in terms of the people who are watching this, who again are not as well read in this stuff as you, then to talk about the difference between instrumental truth and epistemic rationality before we understand what Pascal's wager is going backwards. We have to wait. We have to build. You have to build. Was this what you learned the day one on Philosophy 101? Of course not. I mean, is it that you're trying to flex? That you're smarter than and more well read than anybody here? You win. You win. You don't need to flex. You know more about this than the rest of us. That's okay. We're learning so that we can get to where you're at. That's it. Zibby said religion is a country club, a network, a self-help movement, and fraud. Enjoy the humanity. Oh, the humanity. Yep. Lord of the Rings, far right, you fat. Well, hey, I've never seen it, so projection. Oh, love the chat projections. My favorite kind. All right, diving back in here. What are we talking about?
Birth, but end up rejecting those beliefs as adults. And for those people, trying to force yourself to believe is not only ineffective, it can lead to some pretty serious unhappiness, the exact opposite of what a pragmatist wants. So it might be that for a pragmatist, the best advice for non-believers is that they just gotta live their lives.
That's all we're trying to do. Nick, is that what you're trying to do? Because that's what I'm trying to do. Mike, is that what you're trying to do? Because that's what I'm trying to do.
Maybe they'll find God and maybe they won't, but making yourself swallow it like medicine doesn't seem like the way to maximize belief. Okay, so Pascal said that we should believe in God because belief is just practically useful. But Soren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish philosopher, went even further.
Big fan of Kierkegaard.
He adopted the famous tenet of fideism, stating, "I believe because it is absurd to believe." Fideism is the school of thought that says religious belief has to come from faith alone. It says stuff like arguments and evidence actually kill what's great about religion, which is wonder and mystery.
And I tend to agree, except I don't value that wonder and mystery as much as somebody who lived in that time might. As we have cured, for lack of a better word, that wonder and solved so many of those mysteries, what is left? What beauty is left? What wonder is left? We already know. And we will continue to find out more.
Like arguments and
without God.
Evidence
in spite of God, actually
kill what's great about religion, which is wonder and mystery. Kierkegaard said that the fantastic thing about belief in God is that it's entirely irrational. You can't do it with your brain. You have to take what he called the leap to faith. And again, here I turn to Indiana Jones. Remember when Indy faces that last test of faith / booby trap in The Last Crusade? He has to try to make an impossible jump across a scary pit to get to the Holy Grail. There is no way he can do it. It's suicide. But it turns out there's a bridge. He can't see it, but in order to find out that it's there, he has to take that step. He has to take a chance on something that defies all reason. That's what religion is all about, according to Kierkegaard. We jump and hope like hell that God catches us.
But see, because of gravity, usually, I'll just be generous, usually you're going to fall. You're going to die. So the fact that one person, again, broken clock, right twice a day, just because you happen to be right, doesn't mean going around assuming that if I just, do whatever feels appropriate based on nothing, that's going to be a good way to live. That's stupid. And that's stupid. And if somebody came to you with that mentality in anything other than religion, you would mock them to no end. Oh.
That's what religion is all about, according to Kierkegaard. We jump and hope like hell that God catches us. And the only way to know is to jump. We have to surrender reason to get to truth. Now, I hate to break it to you, but this is the end of our unit on the philosophy of religion.
We did it!
I'm interested to hear what you think about that
We
in the
did it,
comments.
guys!
So before we go, I want to head to the thought bubble for some flash.
All right, the last thought bubble for the philosophy of religion. And again, guys, we have plenty more. This is only not video number 15. It goes up to 47. So we have plenty of time to get down the different avenues of all these different schools of thought. But in terms of specifically religion, it will come up again. Not saying we're just throwing religion to the side, but the very the very basics of why you should believe Pascal's wager, why you shouldn't believe what all that stuff. We are moving on. So you can say Kierkegaard was pretty awesome for a theist. I agree. I like the maybe I'll be better able to articulate what I'm thinking after we see the thought bubble, but I like how he creates a requirement that I don't agree with. That then says like, oh, okay, well, if it's absurd not to believe, and that's the only reason to believe, then that is not a convincing reason for me, and therefore, according to Kierkegaard, I'm good. All right, Zeppy is leaving us already. All right, brother, you have a good one. All right, final thought bubble before the after party. In fact, I'm going to join the after party right now. Guys, I am already in the after party. So what you don't want to do is keep me waiting. No, just kidding. But seriously, you can join the room before the stream is over, and I would suggest that you do it. All right, the final thought bubble.
But before we go, I want to head to the thought bubble for some flash philosophy. Our old friend Bertrand Russell once posited the existence of a China teapot.
I've used this before. You should be familiar with this thought experiment. I have used it. Yes, we did it. And again, guys, if you want to become a member, you can scroll right below this video if you're on actually, it should be either way. That join button, hit join. It's $2.99 a month. That gives you 12, at the very least, 12 after parties, 30 to 31 days of contact with us in all of the different channels. And if you don't like it, then that's $3 out your pocket. I mean, you just cancel it. And even if you don't want to, or you can't afford the $3, again, it is free to join, guys. It's free to join. You get the free channel. You won't be able to get into the on-screen after party with us. But again, 24/7, we are in there. That is the first thing I check. Well, that's a lie. The first thing I check is my email to see if I got any work emails. But then I check Discord. And I don't know how many other YouTubers we might be. Did we hit 4,000 yet? Did we hit 4K yet? Oh, we need 3 more subscribers. Guys, if you are not subscribed, I am 3 subscribers away from 4K. But I don't remember why I brought that up. But yeah, there's just a lot of people who are doing all of this and don't interact with the chat, don't interact with the community. And I'm trying to do way more than that. The stream is just a vehicle to bring us all together. The stream is a vehicle to bring us all together. The Discord is where we can really do what matters. So let's finish up this thought
Slash
bubble.
philosophy. Our old friend Bertrand Russell once posited the existence of a China teapot orbiting the sun somewhere between Earth and Mars. Let's say that back on Earth there were a bunch of teapotists, people who argued that since we can't disprove the teapot's existence, they were justified in believing in it. Not only that, they constructed great
I wouldn't be mad.
buildings, erected statues, composed songs, held weekly services, and appealed to the teapot for help in their daily lives. But everyone else thought the teapotists were ridiculous because there was no evidence to support their belief in the teapot.
There's no evidence to support your belief in the teapot. So this is all based on the idea that there is a teapot in space floating around the sun right between Earth and Mars. I usually like to switch it to like Saturn and Jupiter or something, because if it was Mars and Earth, and at some point theoretically you'd be able to see it with a telescope or something like that. It just makes it easier. Just put it way out there. But yeah, there's a teapot in space, and they believe it, and they have exactly as much evidence as you do for your God.
Thought the teapotists were ridiculous because there was no evidence to support their belief in the teapot. For their part, the teapotists just replied that
Shout out to Sir Crispy Bacon. I don't know who you are on here, but welcome to the Discord server.
none of the teapotists could prove that it wasn't there. Thanks, Thought Bubble. And I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. Pragmatism, where the leap to faith might be a solution to the problem of God's existence if you're not satisfied with any of the other more evidence-based arguments, but believing in something because it's expedient or because it frees you from having to have any reasons at all can still have its risks. After all, if we can leap to God, we can also leap to Russell's teapot or to the flying spaghetti monster.
Or Klombadrov, which I'm waiting to see if I can get the guy who started the Klombadrov religion thing. I'm trying to see if I can get him on the channel, because I think that would be a really interesting conversation. But if not, then we'll go on a deep dive. And I don't think it would take that long, so I would probably do it on like a weekend or a Tuesday, Thursday stream. But just going into how perfectly, because Zippy just brought up Pastafarianism, which is the flying spaghetti monster is our god, and it's a really good analog, because just like Russell's teapot, it doesn't have any basis, and of course it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, as there's obviously historical relevance to some aspects of what's in the Bible, but just the taking the story as a whole, it's just not true. So we're definitely going to have to dive into that. Hopefully I can get him on. But Deacon Trussy on Twitter, Deacon Trussy, hit him up, be like, oh my God, you need to talk to the Indian Jesus, and we'll get him on here. Bugmaster, so they did compose a song about teapots, little ones to be exact. A true classic. Steve Ware said the flying spaghetti monster is the one true God. Dilly, my fellow Pastafarian. Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry.
Risks. After all, if we can leap to God, we can also leap to Russell's teapot, or to the flying spaghetti monster. Or, much worse, we could leap to particular beliefs about God, like that he wants us to deny rights to certain kinds of people, or kill them. These beliefs aren't representative of the views of most theists, but the problem is, if you're giving up on reasons and evidence, all beliefs are philosophically equal.
Right. And even though it's not most, oh, sorry about that, I missed this here. Shout out to Zippy DSM Lee with another Rumbo rant. Oh my goodness. And the dog emperor of mankind needs a snack, and he shall be served. He shall be served. And back to his relaxing state. Thank you, sir. Very, very, very much appreciated. All right. Well, what did he just say?
Theist?
Oh yeah, it's not representative of most theists, but the problem is that is just circumstance and the human rationality that goes against religion, that creates people who can at the same time be theists and also not be bad people. It is only because of secular rationality that you don't follow the parts of the Bible that are bad, because you don't follow it all. You know that you don't follow it all. And you choose not to follow it. You choose to say, oh, this doesn't apply to me. But if you can do that, then what's the purpose of the Bible in the first place? At least as a holy book, as opposed to a reference.
But the problem is, if you're giving up on reasons and evidence, all beliefs are philosophically equal. We count on evidence and justification to help us adjudicate between beliefs, to decide what we value. If you throw that out and fall back on faith alone, the sum of your religious arguments is going to end up being, I have faith in the things I choose to have faith in.
That's it. That's what you're saying. I believe in the things I believe in.
What?
Okay. What does that mean?
And in that case, no one can tell anyone else that their belief is wrong or dangerous or unjustified, because you can't justify faith. Today, we thought a bunch about religious pragmatism and Pascal's wager, and we also learned about fideism and Kierkegaard's leap to faith. Next time, we're going to learn about existentialism, which is a movement Kierkegaard is considered to belong to, but as we will see, existentialists can come in many different flavors. Crash Course.
Many different flavors. Oh my goodness. Again, my friend. Thank you so very much. I'm going to give him a double here. I'll give a double here. Out sponsoring yourself. Thank you so very much. That was too good of a stopping point. But I will keep that to a memory. And if we are on the balance of, should we continue next time or not? Then you will definitely have the weight to keep us going. Thank you so very much. So, I mean, in terms of getting an understanding of this stuff, clearly we're all at different levels of how well we are familiar with this stuff, and that's okay. That's exactly why we're doing this. We're doing this so that we can all get on the same page with the basics, so that we can use that level of philosophical thinking to apply to the beliefs that we may already have, but maybe don't have the justification, or we have the justification, we just can't articulate it. And it's like, I think this thing, but I can't tell you why I think this thing, but there is a reason. And I heard it from somebody, like all of this kind of stuff. We want to be able to communicate with each other. That is the goal here. And so as long as we continue down this road of learning and different ideas and showing each other that there's something more than just this, just that, just this, then we will have such a strong community. As long as you guys join the Discord. But I really think, guys, we have so much that we're going. Well, I'm not going to speak for myself. I am going to accomplish a shit ton in the next 5 and 10 years. I am going to accomplish a shit ton. I am telling you that right now. You can decide if you believe me, if you want to take that leap to faith, or if you want to use the evidence of what I've done so far. Either way, you can hop on or not. But those of you who know. And we are doing the damn thing. Shout out again to our sponsor, Funk Master General. We also had Calvin with the $2. We also had Zippy DSM Lee with the Rumble Rants. Thank you so very much, guys. You mean so much to me. You mean so much to me. And that's why, despite being tired as fuck right now, the only thing I want to do is go and talk to you guys in the after party. So, members, I am very excited to have that chat. Everybody else, I am not going to be live tomorrow. I am planning on seeing Deadpool on Sunday, so I'll fit a stream in there somewhere. Definitely check, make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell. If you're in the Discord, even if the free part, you will have all the notifications so you never miss a stream. Guys, thank you again. Thank you so much. And wrote those admin whoopsies. Thank you, brother. I do really appreciate each and every one of you. Whether you can dish out money or not. Again, I am subject to the same bullshit money shit that you are. I gotta eat. I gotta pay bills. I gotta pay rent. If I didn't, I would do this for free all day because it's that important to me, and you guys are that important to me. So thank you again. I'm running out of ways to say how much I love you guys. I'm running out of ways, but I do very much love you. So once again, we have a little more down here, and I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.